Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 366. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Reagan. Chris, good to see you with your Leon Kennedy hair today. Looking handsome. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah. I feel good. My office is completely, it's very rare that my office is in tip-top condition, but like I did a bunch of cable management over the last couple of days, just cleaning. Just feels nice. It smells very clean because I doused it in chemicals. So it feels nice.
Good.
It's nice. It's a good day.
Good. I actually cleaned my office too, but I just straightened it up. I didn't clean. I didn't use chemicals or anything like that. I didn't break out the pledge. Do you guys remember it was a few years ago when I pledged my stairs?
Oh, yeah.
And didn't realize that it would make it into like a cart to like a Looney Tunes staircase where people are like, like fumbling up and down it, and then the dogs couldn't use it. And it's a bad idea. I didn't know that I was making it into a slip and slide, but the wood looked really nice.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What kind of chemicals did you use? I'm a big fan of 409 as a cleaner. I love that cleaner.
Oh my God. There's
very
like,
diverse.
I can't even remember what it's called because it was just recommended to me by my mom, and now I just buy it on site based on look. But it's like a green kind of, I think it might be called Simple something.
Oh, Simply Green or whatever?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. I'm like
your mom uses Fabuloso or whatever that's called as a Hispanic
We've actually
woman.
somehow never used that. Like I know that's I know that's a common thing though for Hispanic families.
Is that a Hispanic thing?
I mean, presumably it's kind of like Fanta.
Uses it.
It's kind of like Fanta where like everybody drinks Fanta maybe sometimes, but like it's primarily.
Is it Fanta? I never drank it. I always called it Fanta. I think I've been saying it wrong.
Well, it makes sense that people would call it Fanta.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm just used to it. The only context that I'm used to hearing about it is not from it's only from other Spanish speaking people. Like my white friends and my black friends, like they're not drinking Fanta really.
Yeah. I've
only ever heard it as Fanta. But
Fanta. Well, it's good to see you today, my friend. I kind of said it with a little bit of an Italian inflection. I don't know what that was all about, but it's good to have you here. Nonetheless, Dustin Furman, executive producer, you're looking like a little boy in that hat. How are you today?
Fuck you. Like a little boy? Wait till you see how awesome this hat is, dude.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it.
Can you see what it says?
Oh, it's a Jaguar hat. That's awesome.
It's a
yeah.
Jaguar
Is that an original?
No.
I was like, that would be fucking sick.
I went to the Atari booth. I cannot remember the game that they're showing. I'm so sorry. It's a car combat game that was pretty fun. And I bought it for $20 because I was like, dude, I gotta have the Jag hat, dude.
Yeah, they're selling Jaguar merch. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I
messaged Jason about it. I was like, dude, I bought the Jaguar hat. He was like, that's one of our best logos.
There are so many people like you that say Jaguar. And I only ever started hearing it after we made fun of you for it. Because, I watch a lot of football coverage. The Jaguars are one of the teams, and you hear people every once in a while say Jaguars. And I'm like, why can't people just say Jaguar?
Hey, if you come back up here at some point, you're going to hear people say lots of funny things.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I can even talk at all, really.
Yeah, sure.
So now, Colin, you said I look like a little boy. You immediately at the start of the show wanted to demean me. Are you doing okay?
Why? Why do you think that I'm not doing okay? Because I'm not demeaning you. Why is that a demeaning thing to say?
Well, I'm
you
a
have the hat
man.
pitched up. You look like the kid in fucking Sandlot. All right,
I'm a full-grown man, and the first thing you say to me is I look like a little boy. I mean, I feel like it's a little rude.
I'm sorry.
I don't know why you would say that. I know you. Are you actually sorry?
If it really hurt your feelings, I'm really sorry.
Well, did it actually hurt my feelings?
Well, this is what I'm saying. See, you're just messing around with me now.
Am I?
I don't know
You'll never know.
You won't know, dude.
I don't know. You don't know.
Good Uno card there.
Yeah,
now you don't know what to do with this show, do you?
Yeah, I'm kind of a little thrown off.
Good.
I don't know exactly how to proceed or if we should proceed.
We can cancel.
I don't think that's fine with me. It's nice out. I want to go float around in the pool.
Insane.
Oh my God. It's like it's 86 out right now, which is very tolerable because it's been like 98. And then it rained like a shit ton, and then it cooled everything down, and now it's a more reasonable temperature. Plus I stopped drinking. Like I was drinking Two Hearted and everything, like heavier beers in the pool, and just getting too drunk. So I finally did get some all day IPA, which is half as much alcohol ABV. Let me survive a little longer in the heat, because nothing says refreshment like drinking a 7% beer in 100-degree weather, floating in a pool that is also 100 degrees.
It's just swimming around in a fucking cauldron, basically.
I should have gotten the cooler. I got the heater like an idiot. And my uncle was like, you should get the cooler. It's not Long Island. It's really hot down here. And he was right.
Yeah.
So that was a waste of money.
I really conceptually can't even imagine a pool outside being hot.
Right.
Like it defies everything that I've ever understood about literally everything. Like
I also couldn't imagine it until it happened. And it is like a bathtub.
Man. Yeah.
Now
it's kind of nice. Like it's nice. Like it's refreshing even if you do go in, because it's just water or whatever. But I'm with you on Long Island. The pool is always cold. It was often too cold. Like everyone's like, oh, I don't really want to go in, like even in like June or July. But
the thing that's crazy is that like, because even in the hottest places that I've been, like places like, I remember a long time ago, I went swimming in Tucson, Arizona. Right. And I swam in a pool outside in like 100-something degrees, and it was freezing. And I presume they have, a cooler, but I didn't think that far ahead. I just kind of figured like, oh yeah, the pool is cold because that's what pools do. Like, why would there be a pool that doesn't do that? Seems insane.
Now, that would be a desert region, so maybe it gets really cold at night.
That's also true. Yeah, I didn't think about like, I guess Florida, I mean, who does? But like that type of environment being subject to like, oh yeah, no, it's hot all the time. And it's humid as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scene. It's a scene. Anyway, Uncle Mike was right. Should have gotten the cooler but stuck with the heater that I never use. Good to be here with you guys today. Let's see what's going on in my life. Anything interesting? No, not really. Just playing games, putzing around the yard, watering flowers, tending to the lawn, doing a little power washing. Yeah, really nothing exciting. So it's July 3rd when we're recording this, July 4th tomorrow. Any big plans for you guys? I'm going to go to Uncle Mike's, speaking of Uncle Mike, go hang out with the family and celebrate America. Whatever. Any plans for you guys, Chris?
I can't, not that I'm aware of. I'm sure I know. The thing is, like, I know a lot of friends of mine have a strange number of friends whose birthdays are this weekend. So I think, or like anniversaries, or it's like it's a weird time where it's just like, oh, everybody's got some weird thing going on. So I think there's like probably a birthday party or something. I think there's 2 that I might have to juggle, and then like some of my friends are out of town because they're. I know one of my friends is going on like an engagement thing, or like not an engagement thing, but an anniversary thing this weekend. So like, not really. I'm probably just gonna play video games, honestly, and maybe stop by these parties on, I think, Saturday or something. But like 4th of July itself is always kind of like, that's a family holiday. I feel. I don't know. Like it's like, in my experience, I've never gone out with my friends for the 4th of July. It's always been like a family barbecue where everybody comes together and they like, oh, we're gonna grill some dogs,
Right.
And I'm like, if I'm not surrounded by family, I don't know if I'd really care.
Yeah, I actually like 4th of July, but we're on the precipice of a really meaningful, like the most meaningful 4th of July in history, I would think, which would, well, maybe except for maybe the 100th, which is the 250th. And that's going to be a great, got to celebrate however we feel about America these days. We all have our different feelings on everything that's gone wrong and doesn't feel right. And everyone's at each other's throats. I do believe there's a lot to celebrate on the 250th anniversary of our country. And the general goodness, the general decency of Republican government, small r, Republican government. So I'm saving it all for next year, and I'll break out the "Don't Tread on Me" flag or something next year, and we'll get a little crazy with it. Dustin, you gonna go throw around the ball with your dad?
I will be drinking icy light mangoes, grilling hot dogs. Now, normally I don't know, I spend like $50 on bootleg fireworks shit. And usually in a drunken stupor, we either shoot them at each other or jump over them. I actually have it's kind of faded now. You guys definitely can't see it. I have a little bit of a scar on my arm where I got bit last year by a firework. So maybe those days are behind me now. You know, I'm almost 32. I can't be jumping through fireworks anymore. I'm going to eventually die.
Yeah, I don't fuck around with fireworks. They make me nervous.
Mm.
Too many.
You've never ever?
Well, yeah, no, I have.
Okay.
Well, you're a fireworks person, so you probably know the name Grucci, which is like a huge firework company.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. They're based on Long Island. And I think I've said before that like in the 80s, their factory blew up and it was like insane. And a lot of people died or whatever. And I'm friends with Felix Grucci III, who's a kid I went to school with, and we were buddies. He's a doctor actually now. And his dad was our congressman. So they were like a big family.
Felix Grucci III.
Yep. Felix Grucci.
Sounds like an anime villain.
Yeah. Grucci. And his dad was our congressman for a while. And so they were like a big fireworks family. So that was like how they made their money. That's how they became wealthy. So I have always had an eye on the fireworks. I think it's cool. It's a cool little industry. It's gotten very sophisticated. I've set off a few in my own day, but I just think the percentage is too high that you're going to fuck yourself up. And I have seen so many videos at this point of people like live leak style, like, oh, there goes your hand.
Right.
Kind of situation. I actually, the last time I saw it was when the Dodgers won the Stanley Cup, I was going to say the World Series. Some dude blew his fucking hand off with
I remember that video. And
I just thought it's like, no way, man. Like,
well, you got to learn what fireworks you can fuck around with and which ones you can't. You know, like any kind of firecracker. No, yeah, I am not fucking around with those at all. Brandon will like light them in his hand and then throw them. I'm not doing that. Like, no way with anything that explodes. A little fountain, you know, a little thing that it's shitty. It's bootleg fireworks shit. It just kind of shoots out sparks. You're fine with that. It's not going to explode, blow off your hand. It could severely burn you, of course, but you know, so you just got to learn the way of the road.
Yeah, it's not attractive to me. Mike's dad loves fireworks too, and it's just like, man, what is this, like 1750? Like, I can imagine how spectacular that was back in the day.
Right. Yeah. It's like a caveman showing a caveman.
Right.
Firework would be truly mesmerizing.
Right. Like during a thunderstorm that just happened a day or two ago, Mike and I were watching it through the windows, and it was like crazy lightning. And I was like, this makes perfect sense why everyone was like, oh my God, like what the fuck is happening? You know, like, what is happening? And a firework would be a very similar thing. It's like a comet coming through the sky or something, like an omen. So I'm sure it was very, very impressive. Just like we've talked about before, like parades. I guess that would be fun at some point. If you never saw anyone, never did anything, and never left your house, like within 10 miles of where you were born, then I think a parade would be very fun. But these days, like parades, like what are we doing?
Yeah,
we're having parades. We're shooting off fireworks. Like, you got to let go.
Everyone
go on their phone.
You got to let go. It's crazy. You got to let go of the concept of parades. Let it go. It's over.
It's over. It's over. All right. Well, welcome to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. It's good to be here with you guys today. It's good to be here with the audience as well. Hope you guys are doing well out there as well. Remember, you can get our show 3 days early and ad-free on patreon.com/laststandmedia, patreon.com/laststandmedia, early ad-free access to this show and all the other shows we do on our network. We have an Xbox show that Mr. Matty Plays and Lord Cognito do. We have a Nintendo podcast led by Bradley Ellis. We have a gameplay podcast also led by Brad, and so on and so forth. So lots of different perks over there. $5 is the sweet spot where most of you subscribe, and we couldn't do it without you. You can also submit your inquiries to the show. We'll hear you from plenty of you this episode. Lots of inquiries this episode. Access to our Discord if you want that level of chicanery. RSS feeds for all the podcasts, so that's nice. If you don't want to use Patreon, you can just feed it right into your Apple Podcast app or whatever app you use, and Spotify as well, and more. Sacred Symbols Plus as well, a weekly supplemental podcast to this podcast, Sacred Symbols, where we dive deeper, conduct interviews, and do the rest. James Solar, our friend James Solar, wrote in on Patreon, just like you can, and said, I enjoy Colin's autism. We need more numbers and more data deep dives. Not really. I love the show and the cast the way it is. Well, whether you want it or not, you're getting it, because what I just recorded yesterday was a really great episode that will go live the day after our episode that you're listening to now goes live, with Reese Elliott from Alinea Analytics. And you've probably heard of Alinea over the last year or so, maybe a little bit more. We've cited them many times. They are a new firm. And the numbers, for instance, of the Xbox games on PlayStation come from Alinea. And we get into their strategies and how they figure out the numbers. And we get into some numbers too, including a lot of exclusive stuff. Guys, did you know that Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation 5 has sold a comparable amount of copies as Astrobot on PlayStation 5?
Wow.
Oh, wow. No.
And that Microsoft, if not for the cut that Sony would get from those Forza sales, would have actually grossed more money on Forza Horizon 5 coming to PlayStation 5. 4-year-old game. Fascinating stuff. I think you guys are really, really going to like our conversation. We talk a lot about PlayStation's performance on Steam as well, and some other stuff, and what the future holds for a multi-platform approach with all of these different companies, and fairly timely considering the Helldivers news that broke right before we started recording. We'll get to that in a little while. So please look forward to that. Also, I will be recording an episode, I believe, with Brad and Gene about Death Stranding Director's Cut. I've beaten the game now. I'm still working on the platinum, but I want to just get it all out before I start playing Death Stranding 2 next week. So that will be fun. You can look forward to that as well. And we also sat down and did our betting special results. We'll keep the answers to ourselves, but there was a winner and there were definitely 2 losers. So please look forward to that as well. Merch, laststandmedia.store. Remember, you can get your copy of Herbroxia right now. Liam Fagan wrote in and said, yo, no question. Just wanted to shout out the Herbroxia special edition. It arrived to me in the UK within a week of placing the order. The attention to detail is incredible. I absolutely love the artwork. I wish I could have bought 2. You could buy another one. We've actually, I think we're still sitting on like 600 of them or something. So we didn't want scalpers and people to just buy it. But if you want to buy an extra one at this point, we're not going to stop you. And I really appreciate everyone coming out and supporting the game. I'm still struggling whether I want to do 1,000 or 2,000 copies for our next publishing, because even though we didn't sell through all the copies of Herbroxia, I think this is the crazy part about buying more copies, is that I think we still made more revenue, because the 1,001 to 2,000, those copies are like substantially cheaper to buy. So I don't know. I'm still struggling on what to do. But we'll figure it out, because we have to sit on these games for a while, but we'll sell them all ultimately. And if we're making our money back earlier, then it really is just profit regardless. So I have a lot to think about with this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to do. But in the meantime,
go ahead.
Please. Please. No, please.
I was going to say a quick note from Micah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you ordered your copy of Herbroxia, and let's say you're waiting for it, on the page, we noted there's a 12-week shipping window, just because the sheer volume of copies that Micah is diligently sending out. She's been getting a lot of emails to our merch shop asking about when
driving her insane.
Her order is. She's getting many, many emails.
It's driving her insane. Yeah.
So just because you're seeing people get their copies now, you may get yours next week. You may get it in, unfortunately, 5 weeks. And that's just the nature of our small scale operation. So if you're wondering when your order is coming, we're still within that 12-week window. So unless it's about maybe you got your copy and something's wrong, or you're getting a shipment notification somewhere else, please don't email the store asking when your copy will come. Once we're outside of that window and you haven't gotten it, then absolutely. Please email us at that point. But because of the amount of copies and one person shipping them out, it just takes some time. So please leave Micah alone, unless there is an issue outside of that.
Right. We did have one issue.
Please bother Micah.
Yeah, we had one issue with one package that was going to Poland. I know that was getting bounced back and forth for some reason. Keep it up and maybe you'll never get your package. So
it'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Micah can only do so much, but also because there's a lot of random rules. Like I've even gotten people from the USPS writing in like mailmen and stuff have written into us kind of seemingly unaware of some of the rules around it. Like we don't have a commercial license with the USPS. So I think we can only ship 50 copies a day. Even if we could do more, like you're not supposed to be able to drop off. Like in other words, we drop off like a shit ton of packages, leave them on the desk and they take them. But imagine like a real company just dropping all their shit off to the USPS. Like at some point you have to like be like, no, you can't. You need like a license and like they come grab things from you and things of that nature. So I think that's also a major reason why we can't, like we literally ship 50 a day max. Because I don't think they'll accept any more than that. So, your patience is appreciated. She's doing a great job toiling away. The children mine. Micah yearns for the mines.
Yeah.
Clearly. She yearns for them. All right. Oh, I thought this was a fun one as well, because on lastdaymedia.store, not only can you buy Hubroxia, of course, but our normal run of t-shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, hats, etc. Christopher wrote in and said, I'm thankful somebody else opened the weird fan interaction faucet because I had a story. I'm walking down a local Target in Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford, New England's rising star. Do you remember those billboards, Chris, in Connecticut?
The rising star?
Yeah, like everyone would make fun of it because like they were trying to call Hartford New England's rising star for a while. So you'd see like billboards for it. And it's like, dude, it's Hartford, Connecticut. Please give me a break. I'm dressed like shit. Sweatpants and just my stand down sacred symbols hoodie. As I'm walking around, a man starts staring at me from all the way across the store. I think nothing of it, but keep an eye on the situation with this man. Suddenly his eyes are fixed on me and he's moving faster than one should in a store. My heart is racing. I'm sweating, wondering if I was being targeted by a murderer. Instead, he kindly points and he says under his breath, sacred symbols, nice, and walks past me and leaves before I could react. There was no stand down or anything like that, just uncomfortable eye contact and then his approach minutes after I'd spotted him. I'm just writing this to say I would have loved to have a conversation with a fan about the podcast. Instead, I either met a fan or will be murdered in the next few days. Sorry for the longer write-in and thank you. Christopher, thank you for writing in. Glad you had a positive interaction out there. You too can have an interaction by wearing your shirts from lastdaymedia.store.
I saw a guy in the distance at Too Many Games wearing a Sacred 300 shirt.
Oh, cool.
And I was able to, he didn't see me as I was walking closer. At least I don't think. I said, hey, nice shirt. He's like, oh, thanks. And then he didn't realize that it was me at first.
That's funny.
Like, gotcha.
Right.
Nice young man, though.
Very nice young man, I'm sure.
Swell young man.
Swell, fine young person. All right. Quick note before we get into topics of discussion. Matt Danger 87 wrote in and said, hey, CDC. Unfortunately, the Reddit basement dwellers in their infinite need to try to take down others a peg to make themselves feel better about their immense inadequacies in life. That's pretty harsh.
Jesus Christ.
Have noticed that the LSM Patreon numbers are no longer visible and have proceeded to surmise all the worst possible scenarios. So I figured I would ask in order to hopefully squash this narrative immediately. Colin, are you taking a page out of our favorite corporations and hiding the numbers because the sky is falling and the business is about to go under in spectacular fashion? Or are the Redditors doing what they typically do best, shouting into the void about nothing? Take care, boys. No, they're not shouting into the void about nothing. The numbers are hidden. This is kind of, Dustin and I talked about this last week. This is a culmination. So when the month was turning over, let me back up. I should explain the whole thing because I'm assuming everyone knows like what we've already said or what I've already said about this. The numbers are wrong. We've known that the numbers are wrong, like the publicly facing numbers. And apparently this is a problem with other Patreons as well, like older Patreons. And as I've said, my working theory and what I've shared with Patreon itself is that like it seems like elderly Patreons that have been around for a long time have a lot of like legacy noise data. And these numbers haven't been purged. And so what I think I said to the audience at the time when I talked to them was Patreon said like the numbers have probably never been as high as your highest number has noted. And they're not as bad as, or, they're not bad, but not as low as they were at that time or whatever. So like they're somewhere in the middle. And so we have this feed on Patreon of when everyone signs up, when someone leaves a comment, so it'll say like, John and 8 other people signed up. Fred and 5 other people left. Chris and 7 other people left a comment, like that kind of thing. And I started going through the numbers for the month of June and just kind of, adding them together, subtracting them. So it's like 8 plus 5 minus 7 plus 3 and like the number that came out and then the number that showed, I was like, these numbers are not right. Like these numbers are not like, what is this number? And I was like, well, the data's wrong. Like, and so I was like, well, we shouldn't be sharing wrong data. So it really has nothing to do with anything other than that. I just feel like it's annoying to me. It's what we say with Chris and I have said many times with our Twitter accounts and our YouTube channels, which is like, if I could purge all of my dormant bot, whatever followers and subscribers and have a real number that would be lower than what I have now, I would do it. And the answer, and it's the same thing for Patreon, but we don't know what the numbers are. So, Graphtron is a really great service I use. You check it on other people's Patreon, see how they're doing over time, but they're just scraping the numbers available to them. So it's not Graphtron's fault. And this is probably not a huge problem with other newer Patreons, but there's something up with the numbers. Like they don't make sense. And the other big thing that I was I've said this to the company, everyone in the company, as we were meeting over the last few months, is figuring out kind of like new things we want to do and how we're feeling or whatever, where I was saying, I think I used the term, the money is supernaturally flat, where like the income doesn't match like the vacillation in numbers of subscribers and stuff. Like there's something just missing. So for those curious, I didn't know if anyone would even really notice or care. And then I said to Dustin, I was like, why were these ever public to begin with? Like what private corporation gives away this level of sales data about themselves? It's strange that's even the expectation, Public companies don't even tell you. Sony won't even tell you how many people are on PS Plus. So Microsoft won't tell you how many Xboxes they sold, and they're public. So yeah, that's the answer. And I hope it fit. Snark Tank is not a very old Patreon, right? Do you feel like your numbers are accurate?
Well, we started in I started that Patreon, I think, in 2020 or 2019. No, it must have been 2018. Fuck, I don't even know how old it is. I feel like the numbers are relatively accurate, but to be honest, I look at it and I'm just like, as long as we're getting paid, I really don't give a shit what the number. I really don't pay attention. All I know is that the money keeps going up, which is really the only number I give a shit about.
Yeah.
So like, to me, I'm like, I'm sure we've noticed some weird shit with like numbers fluctuating in ways that don't really match how the money goes. Like it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I don't know if it's so old to be affected by, because how old is your Patreon? It's probably like
2017.
Oh, so well. Yeah, I don't know, because my original Patreon's like 2014.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I wonder. What I would really wonder is like what kind of funny, because like that's like a really old one, and I wonder they hit their numbers a long time ago, because I think that they like had a different strategy of like kind of trying to spread the field. I want to keep people on Patreon. I just think Patreon's way more valuable to get. $5 on Patreon is way more money to us than say $5 on Twitch or $5 on YouTube or whatever. Like substantially more. So, and what I mean by that are, for people out there that are not realizing, are like the cuts, the fees that you pay. On Patreon, we are grandfathered into amazing like fee structures that don't exist anymore for anyone. So yeah, the money in, money out thing is the most important, but the money we're pretty flat with money, which is fine. I cannot complain about that. But yeah, the numbers don't really match up. So until I'm confident in them matching and making any sort of sense, whether up or down, then we'll put them back on, I guess, if it's that important to people. Matt Danger 87. Thank you for writing in. All right, let's get into some topics of discussion. We'll get into the news. We'll get into what we're playing. And then we'll get into listener inquiries to wrap everything up, as we always do. Connor Rafter wrote in. Said, hey guys, I've listened to Colin. I'm sorry, read out countless write-ins about sick or dying dogs. Well, sorry guys, we got to do it again. Always knowing in the backup. Let me back up real quick before we even said. I asked you guys not to write these in anymore, right? And no one has. But when you do, it's very hard to ignore it. Like some fan is like talking about how horrible this is, and it's like, so I had to do it. I'm sorry. Connor says, always knowing in the back of my mind it would come for my 9-year-old golden retriever Benji one day. Well, that day has taken one massive step closer this week. Benji has been diagnosed with papillary squamous cell carcinoma, a very rare cancer. What started as a small lump last month has developed into multiple masses across his gum line. Even since his biopsy 2 weeks ago, the growths have doubled in size and numbers. He will now see a specialist to undergo surgery to remove a chunk of his bottom jaw. Whether he will be okay after that or not, we just don't know. It breaks my heart that he doesn't understand what's going on, though perhaps he's better for it. Apologies for the long-winded write-in. I just wanted to encourage everyone to hold their pups a little closer today. Everything can change in an instant. Anyway, love you guys and thanks for the incredible content. That goes for the whole LSM team. Can you imagine? This is why I have a hard time with believing in an active God. Not to get too philosophical. A creature as decent and good and like as a dog, like a golden retriever, classic dog, classic family pet, doesn't do anything. Everyone loves him. Comet on Full House, for instance. And they give him this, and he gets this fucking really rare cancer for just no reason. And it is inexplicable to him because he's not smart enough to understand that he's going to lose a piece of his jaw. It's like, it's fucking crazy, man. That's so sad. I'm sorry that's...
Yeah.
Dogs are so... They should be immune to cancer. In my opinion. We should work towards that.
Yeah.
Fuck our fight with cancer. Let's make sure the dogs are also taken care of.
I mean, as far as we know, like, so here's the thing, right? Like, dogs are great from the perspective of a human, but like, I don't know, like, surely there has to be somewhere the worst dog, right? Like the most violent, irredeemably mean.
Sure.
Like that must exist,
sure,
in some way,
like a pit bull,
and yeah, like a pit bull that's been viciously abused. Turns into like a cretin. I don't know. All I'm saying is like I don't know Benji all that well. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
he might be evil. He might be secretly evil. You don't know.
I don't know. It's golden retrievers. The thing I don't know very much about dogs, to be honest. Like I didn't get into them in quotes until my 30s, and I'm still learning a great deal every day. Like I said that, like, when I fell in love with my ex's Boston Terrier Lola, who listeners Chris knew Lola. That was like that was my gateway dog or whatever. Right. And it's funny when I think back about me taking care of her and spending all this time with her, and she recently passed away, which I was devastated to hear about. And because she was like we were just like boys. She was a girl, but as I was just working, playing games or whatever, and I just really came to love her. And I remember all the mistakes I made along the way, like things you just don't know that are so common sense in the dog world that like you are below rookie status. Like, for instance, when I took care of Lola once, I just went to the store and just bought dog food and just gave it to her, and then she shit all over the apartment, like my apartment in San Francisco, because dogs need to eat like the same food, like the same dog food. They get used to it. You can't just give them like one thing and then the other thing, and she just like shat everywhere. And I was like, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, you have to give them like the food that they eat. And I'm like, I didn't know that. So right. with golden retrievers, I didn't realize that they don't have a long life, which is so sad.
Bigger dogs tend to have shorter lifespans, or at least that's something I've noticed. I don't know if that's scientifically true, but most of the dogs that I know that are like they're huskies or German shepherds or like golden retrievers or something, they tend to live shorter lives than like mini poodles or like terriers or dogs
that's
like
sad.
that.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
9 years is it's too bad they don't live to be like 30 or 40. In some way, losing them would be even more painful, probably.
It's probably.
But at least you would deal with it more seldom. But like you see the things every once in a while where there's like a 25-year-old dog or a 20-year-old dog, and I think the oldest dog. Didn't we talk about it? Like the dog saw 9/11 or something. We thought it was hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, that's fucking crazy. If your dog's bouncing around for like 20 years, that's awesome. But
there are animals that live that. Like parrots will live longer than you will. You know,
Turtles, I think too, right? Yeah, turtles. Yeah.
Turtles live an ungodly long period of time. I learned recently that camels apparently live like really like they live like long compared to it. I think they live about like 50 years or something.
Yeah, 40 to 50 years it says. That's crazy.
So I was seeing this video on Instagram. It just kind of popped up on my feed while I was scrolling last night of some guy like hugging his camel who just like passed away, and I'm like, bro, that must be crazy.
Yeah, that's
must be
nuts.
That must be because that's probably like a 30-year-old relationship. You know what I mean? It's just like that's next level.
That camel saw the bombing of the USS Cole.
Yeah. That camel watched the Seinfeld finale in Times Square.
Yeah, right. Horses 25 to 30 years. It says here. I didn't know that about the camel. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I saw a story recently that there was a turtle that I guess is in captivity that's like 150 years old and just got another turtle pregnant. I'm like, damn, dude.
Good for him.
He was an incel. He was an incel for so long.
Connor, we're wishing you the best. We're wishing Benji the best. Terrible situation. Please, everyone, stop writing it about your dead or dying dogs because it's very hard for me to ignore. Dante Martins wrote in. Said, good afternoon, kings of gooning. This week, my baby daughter was born, and since we stayed 5 days in the hospital, I thought it was a good idea to introduce my wife to the podcast. Within 4 minutes of listening to you guys, we're talking about mouth-fucking Princess Peach and Shy Guy. Then proceeded to talk about going to the doctor to have your ass fingered in less than 30 seconds. Thank you guys very much. This impression now makes my wife look at me side-eyed. Please say hi to baby Cora and wife Ashley. Regards from an immigrant that didn't cross the border illegally. Well, that's good. Why do you guys insist on listening to this around family members? Let's move on. Josiah Elmer wrote in and said, hey, CDC, I may have another marriage to lay on the fire of the Sacred Symbols sacrificial altar. My wife and I went on a date on Monday, and I had been listening to the latest episode on my way home from work. When we got in the car, the podcast auto played and happened to be the part where you were talking about 69ing Teletubby characters. She hasn't looked at me the same since, and I feel the growing divide between us. Are you happy with yourselves? Do you derive sick pleasure from ruining relationships? Yes. I guess the joke's on me considering I subscribe to Patreon just to share my woes. Anyway, I'll hang up and start looking for cheap divorce attorneys now. Theory of the case, guys. These people want divorces.
They're looking for a scapegoat.
We've had so many. How much relationship upheaval can we be responsible for and telegraph and communicate to you before you are walking in eyes wide open, knowing exactly what's going to happen? And so I ask you to look inside. Yeah?
Yeah, this is your fault, dude. This is so clearly the thing to me, right, about listening to this show in front of like a spouse is that this is so much of this show is predicated on either having listened to it for a long time. There's a lot of lore, running gags, or just straight up, this is news about an industry that chances are your spouse or partner or whatever gives zero fucks about. Data analytics about shit that she has no concept of. Why would you subject them to this? This is yours. This is yours, right? This is your show. Listen to it on your time.
Right.
Don't make somebody. I have had to listen to, like, I remember being in situations where I've had to listen to, like, I've been in like a car for a long period of time and I've had to just listen to like a podcast that I had no interest or care about. And it is kind of a miserable experience. Regardless of how good the podcast, I really have no idea how good those shows are.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know because like I've never willingly listened to them. It's always been like this, this circumvention of will. And so like, just be strategic with how you play this.
I have a different outlook on this. Maybe Sacred is the litmus test. You know, if you play some Sacred and she gives you a side eye, maybe she's got to, get out, take it to the curb, kick her out. She's done. If she's not down with Sacred, she's not down with you. Who's been here for you? Every week.
Yep.
For years.
Years.
We have.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't be having her give you a side eye.
That's a really good point.
Sacred. It's so disrespectful. It's actually, I would honestly want the ultimate disrespect, if I'm being honest.
That's a really good point. Like, who has been more consistent in your life than me? Sit down and ask yourself that question. Who's been as consistent as Colin Moriarty?
Man. This is dire. This is a dire situation. How long has she been around, really?
Yeah, I know, right?
She doesn't know you like I do.
This is like the counter. This is like the counter parasocial relationship.
Right, exactly. I know you so much. I have your credit card information. It's in Patreon, you fool.
Yeah, I literally do. I don't. I can't see your information. Please don't worry about that.
I forgot that there are people who might take that seriously.
Yeah, well, there are people that thought that Walt Disney was the last boss in the Lies of P. So anything's possible. Right. And whenever I read comments on the internet or see anything, I always remember, we've brought this up, it's like the statistic that half of people don't have an inner monologue. It's like, what? But if you take that and you internalize it, everything makes sense. Right? Every interaction you've ever had, weird shit that's happened to you in your life, you're like, yeah, you're dealing with people that have no inner monologue. You can't expect too much of them. You can't expect too much of them.
It really is. That's a wild thing that's true. That like I even don't think I've really fully digested what that even means because I don't want to.
Chris, remember it was the same, I think it was the same study saying that I think it was like half people can't conceptualize an apple.
I don't know what that means though. That conversation is really strange to me though. Like the one about like is the concept that like you can't induce a hallucination upon yourself where you see a literal apple in front of you, or is the idea that you just can't conceptualize it in your mind's eye? Yeah,
I think it's about you conceptualizing it in your mind's eye.
But the way that people talk about it, the way that they say, or the way that they address this is that like, yeah, like I can look dead ahead and like just create an apple in my mind and I can see it and I can rotate it around and stuff like that. I don't think that's true. I don't think I have a theory that like just our vocabulary is not sophisticated enough to talk about these types of things. Like I don't think the English language is like sufficient. And to be fair, like I don't think any language is really sufficient enough to really explain these things. But like every time I've gotten into a conversation about like, can you conceptualize an apple? I'm like, yeah, but I can't like live Photoshop it into my vision like so many people are suggesting is how it works.
Right, like an asset in Unreal Engine.
Right. Like I can close my eyes and like really visually like imagine that, but I can't see it. You know?
Yeah.
But people talk about it that way and I'm like, I don't know.
I'm much more concerned because you're right, that is very vague and who knows how to communicate that. I'm much more concerned about the inner monologue thing.
Me too.
I really hope that it's not true. That people are going through their lives not talking to themselves and not having a running commentary of things going on in their minds. It's like, that's fucking crazy. How can that be true? How can this be?
How could this be? I don't know. It'd be true though.
But if you plug that knowledge into the equation of life, right? Doesn't everything make a lot more sense?
Yeah, most things fall into place at that point.
I would say so. Yeah. I just thought this one was funny. Milky Moon 84 wrote in and said, "Hey, Sacred Stooges. I stuck my foot in my mouth, ate crow or whatever the fuck you want to call it last weekend, and I need your input on the situation. I was at a pool party with my in-laws, extended family, and enjoyed a few pool beers before the conversation floated onto tattoos. A few months ago, my wife and her sister got tattoos in their grandmother's handwriting to honor her. Grandmother is still alive and well, by the way. Much to my bewilderment, their sister-in-law got a tattoo in the grandmother's handwriting as well. Now, the sister-in-law is 39 years old and first met this grandmother when she was married into the family at 25. When the sister-in-law started talking about this particular tattoo, I with a little bit of liquid courage and stupidity, blurted out, I don't even know why you got that tattoo. She's not even your grandma. This caused a bit of drama, and I've since apologized profusely, but secretly I fully stand behind my criticism of this tattoo. So, boys, is it as fucking weird as I think it is for a person to get a tattoo in their grandma-in-law's handwriting? Or am I the total piece of shit I profess to be in my apology? I'll sit back and accept your judgment." I just think that's funny. I don't know. You shouldn't have said anything. What's the purpose?
Shouldn't have said anything. There's not enough context of the situation to say whether or not he's the asshole. Now, how close was this woman? How close were these two women? Right? Just because she's married in doesn't mean that they weren't close. Yeah. Now, if she was doing it to bandwagon, then maybe you got some ground to stand on, but you still shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, it's not. It's a no-win scenario. But also, I don't know, 25 to 39. That's a reasonably long period of time to know somebody. It's a pretty good. I mean, again, we don't know the context, but like, I feel like that's like if it had just happened, like if she had just married into the family and then she got that tattoo, I'd be like, what the fuck is that? I would actually have said something probably because I'd be like, what are you doing? That's crazy. But like, that's 14 years. I don't know. That seems like a plausible amount of time to grow close to somebody. And
I agree.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't really have a grandmother or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's not enough context here, but I'm leaning towards you being a complete idiot in this regard. Like,
I just thought it was funny. It's funny.
The idea behind...
For me, not for them.
Yeah. The idea behind marriage is that you are her family. The family's joined together, right?
Right.
So they're your family. I mean, there is the in-law part, but I don't know. That comment, I think, kind of backhands like, oh, well, you're not really even really part of our family.
Yeah.
But she is.
Yeah, it was yeah, you're
loaded.
I feel like that's not going to be let go of for a while, if ever.
No.
Yeah, no, that lives. That's got a good shelf life on it, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the half-life of that is not good.
Staggering. Yeah,
not good. Milky Moon 84, good luck to you. And
that is hilarious, though.
Control your alcohol intake.
I don't even know why you got that tattoo.
She's not even your grandma.
I can so vividly imagine the delivery of it too.
Yeah, me too. Like, that's why it's so funny. It's a funny. It's funny for me.
It's good. Yeah.
Now he's roasted by, I mean, I assume his favorite podcast as well as being viewed as a dickhead by his whole family. Sorry, Milky.
It is what it is. He doubled down. It's not like he was presenting it to us and asking us for advice. He presented his side, and then he said, "I feel I'm actually lying when I apologize." So
Right.
now everyone's lied when they've apologized before. That's not that big of a deal because you're doing it. Sometimes you do it for yourself, but most of the time you're doing it for the other person. You know, I've said some things to people where I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I meant it." But I'm not asking for people's advice or trying to present it, you know, agnostically.
Right.
Alan Joseph wrote in and said, "Hey boys, quick request during a packed week. Can you shout out my best friend and fellow Sacred Symbols diehard Nick for his 40th birthday this Saturday? We met nearly a decade ago through a PSN profiles boosting session for Red Dead Redemption, and it's been nonstop gaming, life talks, and mom jokes ever since. We still game all the time and take yearly trips. This year's is a month-long Final Fantasy Platinum Marathon." Wait. We still game all the time and take yearly trips. This year's is a month-long Final Fantasy Platinum Marathon. I don't know what that means. Like,
are they getting like an Airbnb to play games for a month together?
Maybe. That's sexy. Dustin and Brad spent a week together recently. Rookie numbers, boys. Oh, so that's what he's saying. Let's pump those up. Happy birthday, Nick. Love you, brother. So these guys are, whatever you and Brad had going on, these guys are,
right,
you know, eclipsing you.
Sure.
Let's call it.
I don't want to spend a month with anybody, but Holly really is the only person I can put up with.
I thought you were just going to say anybody, because I think that's totally...
I was about to say good save.
Yeah.
She's, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, God bless you. Sounds like fun. Maybe too much fun. You know, I feel like if I was with even some of my best friends for a month, there's at some point where I'm going to want to kill them.
Oh, definitely. I don't want to be around. I need a break from everybody at some point. You know, Micah and I obviously are married and live together or whatever, but we also are doing our own things and stuff like, so I never get tired of her. But when you have a guest, you have to tend to the guest. Leaving the guest alone is rude. Leaving them to their own devices is not why they're there. And that's what creates the tension. If Micah and I had to treat each other like that, we would also get mad at each other. So, have fun.
Yeah.
That's a romance unlike I've ever heard before, I think. Chris, go ahead.
No, I mean, I like stories like that where people meet people through video games, and because I met I think in the last like 2 years I met somebody that I met on Halo 2 like way back in the day in person for the first time. And he flew out here from the UK for like a month, but we weren't just like playing video games though. We were like obviously like I was like showing him shit. I got him really high by accident and he greened out hard, and it is the best day probably ever. He just kept repeating, "I'm so sick. I'm so sick." And I was just like recording him.
Dude, he will never forget that. He thinks he had ego death that day, and you're laughing.
That rules.
Because like he was drinking the THC drinks.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I can't do
And
that
I
shit.
was like, listen, you have to keep it to a capful. It's not a drink. But he was like, I'm thirsty. And he drank the whole thing. I was like, well, I told you. So like,
Right.
I mean, this is not on me, whatever happens.
Yeah, have fun.
You know? Yeah,
Strap yourself
he just
in and
kept
have fun.
repeating. It was awesome. It was like, I'm so sick. Someone help. I'm so sick. Someone help. Over and over again. Like it was like a broken record. And he was like stumbling. It was amazing. I have it on video. It's wonderful. I watch it all the time.
All right, let's get into the news. And I wanted to start with a little, not a correction, but just a clarification, or just to be fair, let's put this out here. Will Smith wrote in. I didn't know he was a fan of the show.
Oh, hey.
Getting jiggy with it.
Yeah.
Nah. He put out that new song that everyone's making fun of.
Yeah. Pretty girls. Yeah.
Pretty
it's
Girl.
terrible.
Yeah, I listened to it.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. And then someone sped it up and was like, "This makes the song way better." And I'm like, "Yeah, it does." Actually, strangely
Yeah,
enough.
it's still pretty not good. But
Yeah,
like,
it's not good
it's
for
more
a man
listenable.
of that age, for a man of that provenance, doing a song like
Yeah.
that. It's just a little weird. It's a little
He's
weird.
too old to be writing songs like that. Like he should be writing songs about like, I don't know, 401ks
Right.
or like or he should be, I don't know, out. What was it that it was Ted Nugent or like one of those other guys that like killed a bunch of coyotes and spelled out the
Oh
president's
yeah,
name
that
with
was
their
Ted
dead
Nugent, I
bodies?
think. Yeah.
You gotta go off the rails when you're that old. If you want to be a part of this at all.
Right. I mean, he was getting there. Him slapping the shit out of Chris Rock is still. I can't even believe that happened. Like
It's crazy.
It's fucking awesome. It's awesome. Like it's an actually crazy thing that it happened. And I was like, what? Like, where were you? It's like when JFK got assassinated. All right. Will Smith wrote in, said, "Hey, Sacred Boys. I wanted to write in to defend the PlayStation concert. I went to the London show and it was a near sellout at Wembley Arena at circa 12,500 capacity. I guess that would mean that's right. Like it's funny. I was like kind of caught up on that because I was like, I've never seen circa used outside of a date, but it does mean around, I believe.
Yeah.
The music and visuals were absolutely amazing. Even the ghost music, which I agree isn't particularly memorable, was immaculately performed. As I mentioned, it was just as much a visual experience as it was an audio one, although I suspect that will depend on the venue. If any of you get a chance to go, I'd highly recommend it from an immensely hot 95-degree London. Stop complaining about the weather.
95 Celsius.
95
Oh my
degrees
God.
Celsius. It's 5 degrees away from boiling.
Oh my god! Everybody looks like fucking. It's like the end scene from Total Recall. They're all just boiling and exploding on Mars. I mean, to be fair to London and the UK and all those places, they have no AC anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know why that
So
is.
like it is kind of valid. Like when somebody says, if I had to deal with California heat, which is by the way only recently, not even that hot, with no AC, I think I might lose my mind. I'm amazed that like the United Kingdom isn't full of just psychos.
Have you seen that? I've seen this. I don't know where I read it, so I don't want to cite. I can't cite it, but there's this theory that American modern, like post-war American productivity and like how we become like a bastion of business and like people make a shit ton of money here or whatever is in part fueled by air conditioning. That like we embrace air conditioning, and when you think about like your demeanor, your ability to function and think when it's hot, and then you put yourself in some of these places around the world that are either natively really hot, like tropical or subtropical places, or places that are just really hot right now, and how it just sucks everything out of you, and you just can't produce. Like, and it's so funny. I'm like, that's so interesting, because there are places in the United States where it would be completely unlivable. I would say half of the country. without air conditioning. Like, you can't live in Arizona without air conditioning. It's not possible. No one lives there without air conditioning. That's not a thing. New Mexico, Texas, the Gulf states, Florida, all the way up to where I am in Virginia. It's and so I was like, wow, that's so interesting. Just that one technology. But I think it's because a lot of I don't know for sure, but I feel like, well, air conditioning is really expensive, and the United States, per capita income's higher than it is in Europe, so people have more money to pay for it. But I also think it's because a lot of our buildings are newer, and so we have central air and HVAC and all that kind of stuff. Like Dustin lives in an older house. Your house is from the 1800s or early 1900s. Mm-hmm. So like
the front of it.
So he has a window unit AC behind him. You can see. And for him to have what I have in my house, they would need to do an incredible amount of construction and put ducts in. But since my house was built around the ducts, basically, I can have central air. And I think that's just the nature of how it's gone and why it's so embedded in American culture. But I could be wrong on that.
I do have, my whole house does have air conditioning. Like, it goes through the heating ducts.
Oh, that's called pumped air, right? Or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work very well in this room, especially when my door is closed. So I have this additional unit so I don't die during Sacred Symbols.
Like, yeah, the house we had so my original house on Long Island did have central air. And then when I moved right before high school into another house with my dad, that was an older house, like a pre-war house, and we had to use window units in all the rooms. It fucking sucked. And that's where I told the story about how I had a window unit from the 70s that was so cold. It was fucking crazy,
dude.
How cold it was.
I love those the wood panel.
It was exactly what it was. Yeah,
that air conditioners that went down to like fucking 10 degrees or some shit. Like, that's the best shit. Like, coming home to a cold room in the summer, like with that AC specifically, is like so refreshing. It's crazy. But I would be not surprised at all to learn that like productivity is entirely tied to temperature in that way. Like, I've always felt that way. Like, having lived in like New York and in LA, I've always felt that like it's interesting that New York feels so much more busy because it's cold there half the year, and when it is hot, you're never really that far from air conditioning. Like, I remember even just like walking down in New York City when it was like sweltering, and every minute or two you'd walk by a door that would like blast you with AC because like every building is like, it's just better. Whereas over here, I feel like because it's so sweltering, or because it used to be so sweltering, people just have like a more laid back kind of lackadaisical kind of tone, and nothing's as serious. Nobody's as precious with time. Everybody's kind of like, I'll just chill. That's clearly temperature driven, I think.
Yeah. It's really interesting. But the 95 degree thing, it's like, dude, it's 95 degrees here for 3 months. So it's hard. It still is hard for me to justify, like, to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. You should not turn your AC on at all for like a week in the heat and see how it feels. I'm not going to do that.
You understand?
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to live down here without it, dude. Like, I told the story recently on the show where we have like we have like a deal with the AC company that they just come and like preemptively check it twice a year just to make sure it doesn't break, because I'm so paranoid that we're gonna have some sort of problem. Ugh. I'm sorry it's so hot over there, though. I know it seems to happen every year. There's like a week or two where the Europeans are having a tough go of it. So hang in there. And I wanted to just read Will Smith's comment about the PlayStation concert, because we have been fairly critical of it based on what we've read and heard from other people. I've not seen it, and it is coming to Richmond, which is strange, as I noted, I think, last week. So I'm not going to go, but Will Smith says it's good. So just wanted to provide a little balance.
Endorsed by Will Smith.
Yes, indeed. I see. Speaking of your mind's eye, I just see the slap.
Yeah.
Damn.
Insane.
Crazy. Great. Oh my God. Will, be well. All right. This news broke right before we started recording. I woke up to it this morning, and it is big news indeed. Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox, and will be published by PlayStation itself. So no intermediary like a 505 Games or a Bandai Namco. PlayStation is indeed publishing this game on Xbox. Dead wrote into us on Patreon, many people did, and said, well, boys, it's happened. PlayStation is publishing Helldivers 2 on Xbox. Colin, I've been promised this wasn't happening. Do I throw my PlayStation in the garbage now, unsubscribe from the Patreon, kill myself?
Jesus.
I need guidance. No, you don't do any though. I mean, definitely don't kill yourself. If you want to unsubscribe from the Patreon, I don't know why you would, but that's fine. If you want to throw your PlayStation in the garbage, it seems needless. I'm not going to control you, but definitely don't hurt yourself over this news. This news is true. Helldivers 2 is indeed coming to Xbox. The news comes by way of the Xbox Wire, which is interesting. And it's written by Catherine Baskin, who is the community manager of Arrowhead. It says Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox on August 26th. Pre-order today. And people already are. You can pre-order it right now on Xbox for $39.99 or your local equivalent. It says, quote, a new dawn is upon us. Super Earth is expanding its operations and opening new enlistment centers. Xbox players, your opportunity to enlist is coming when Helldivers 2 deploys to Xbox Series X and S on August 26th. And then they have a quote from Mikhail Eriksson, who's the director of the game, says, quote, we know gamers have been asking for this for some time, and so we are so excited to bring more Helldivers into our game. We have so much more in store for the future months and years, and the more players we have, the more stories we can tell. The fight for Super Earth has only just begun, end quote. So you can get the Helldivers 2 regular edition for $40. You can pre-order that now, and you get armor sets and so on and so forth on Xbox for pre-ordering if you'd like, not unlike the PlayStation version. And you can get the Super Citizen edition as well, which is $59.99. So that is $20 more, and you get a bunch of perks as well. Got to know what you guys think. Big news, surprising news. I definitely didn't think this was going to happen, and definitely I would have put money on this not happening. So I was definitely wrong. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also genuinely surprised. This doesn't happen. This is, as far as I'm aware, the first time outside of like the show or something, which was obviously compelled by licensing or external licensing agreements.
And not published by Sony itself either.
And not published by Sony. Yeah, exactly. So like, this is a fairly unique thing. Wild. I'm sad that this broke so recently, because if this had happened like last night, I could have had some time. I have a friend who bought a PlayStation 5 specifically for Helldivers 2, and he had it. He was an Xbox guy, so I'm curious. I'm curious what he makes of this, or if he cares at all, or like if he's like, oh man, I could have just waited. But this is, I mean, it's cool. Like I'm always for generally more people being able to play games, especially like these. Like I always felt generally, and I still feel really, that like multiplayer games specifically, as far as like their exclusivity on PlayStation and really elsewhere, it really behooves the game itself to be on as many platforms as possible. So this to me seems like a smart thing to do, actually. I think it's totally fine. I wonder how many Xboxes are out there to even take advantage of this. Is Helldivers 2 a PS4 game or no?
No,
right?
PS5. No.
Yeah, so that's like, yeah, so you're limited to Series X, presumably. So like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. Helldivers is great. It is a very Xbox coded game in a lot of ways. Like it feels kind of like it belongs there. And we obviously know that Marathon is coming to Xbox as well. So for a multiplayer game, I think it makes sense. I'm just surprised to see it. And I'm also just surprised to see PlayStation themselves publishing it. And it's not Arrowhead, or you know what I mean? Like some weird deal.
Yeah, Sony owns Helldivers. Helldivers is a Sony IP. So it's not even like a weird sort of what you might expect could happen with Neo, or what we've seen happen with Death Stranding and so on.
Right.
So, yeah, this is interesting news, surprising news for sure. Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, it's super surprising just because we've never seen Sony play nice with Xbox unless they are absolutely forced to, as we saw with MLB The Show a few years back. So it's, shocking in a lot of ways. I was thinking from the Sony perspective, though, as great as Helldivers 2 was and continues to be, the zeitgeist is over for this game. And to be clear, it's not to say that it's over, it's not doing well or anything like that, but the full-blown mainstream takeover where everyone was playing it is done at this point. And there's probably a lot of people like Chris's friend that bought a PS5 to play this game. And so, mission accomplished, success. And here we are, however long later. It came out February 8th, 2024 on PlayStation 5 and PC. So a year later. And what did we say just the other day with those numbers? Like the microtransactions have made more profit than the game itself.
Yeah,
at this point,
I was talking about this with Reese from Alinea Analytics, where I was saying I don't know, they never qualified the numbers, because I think what they're saying is like it's settled into a position where it's making more money in microtransactions than it is now making in a la carte sales.
Right.
I don't know that I believe that it's true, that because it would otherwise suggest that people are spending per capita more than $40 after buying the game, which is no way that's true. So I think it's something, I think it's what it's settled into, which is still an impressive stat. But
right. So at this point, again, from their perspective, why not? They can sell it for full price over on Xbox, start racking in microtransactions as well. And that's kind of the whole model for live service games. And what Chris was saying too, with these multiplayer games, it makes sense to be in as many places as possible. So from the business side, I get it. I guess, all of us are just surprised because nothing like this has happened before where a game like this has come over. So it just goes to show we're in a new era in a lot of ways, and seeing how these live service games, at least when they're successful, are treated by Sony. And I wonder if we'll see the same thing with if they ever have another successful live service game, if we will see a year or so of exclusivity and then trickle to Xbox.
Yeah. Ultra Giant writes in and gets into this question with his inquiry, rather. And it's what I kind of want to focus on. He says, "Hey, CDC, with the news that Helldivers 2 is on its way to Xbox, do you think this was always on the cards, or did Sony change their mind? With both Gears of War Reloaded," we don't use the GOW acronym in the PlayStation world to mean Gears of War. I almost read that as God of War. "With both Gears of War Reloaded and Helldivers 2 launching on the same day, are we headed for a summer of brotherly love? Every bullet fired in the name of Super Earth is a bullet fired for freedom." That is indeed true. So I went on record saying, people are making fun of me today over this because I said that this wouldn't really make any sense for Sony to do. This was back last spring. But I listened to the actual video that I circulated or whatever. And I say in the video, which is why I was like, oh, all right, well, it's not that big of a deal that people are making fun of me. They're not even watching the video, where I'm like, I wouldn't mind seeing this happen because I'm curious about like how it would go. But that I don't think it makes any sense from what you could be sacrificing. Let's look at it from an economic position only. And this is where I think that money can be extracted, and they're going to find out. I mean, there's only one way to find out, really. But Sony owns this game. Arrowhead is going to be servicing it for many years. We know from the Xbox Wire post that Nixxes is the one that ported it. So Sony uses internal kind of production resources to bring it over to Xbox. Whatever cost that is X to do that is going to be exceeded, I think, by the money they make Y or whatever on the Xbox store. And so from a monetary position, it probably makes some sense, especially because they're amortizing so many losses now from what I would assume is between $1 and $1.5 billion worth of cancellations. When you're talking about The Last of Us Online, the God of War Online game, Ben's game, Twisted Metal, and so on and so forth. Like, these numbers add up. And that I was actually noting on my conversation with Reese that goes live on Sacred Symbols Plus tomorrow, where one of the things I was saying was it's actually kind of astounding how Sony's books seem to be unaffected by all of the bad decision making, whether it's Bungie or Concord or what is probably going to happen with Fair Games. Certainly Marathon is becoming a money pit for them as well, whether they'll make it back or not. And so I guess what I'm saying is when you see the Xbox or the news of Helldivers 2 going to Xbox and you're like, can this make money? And you're like, yeah, it can. It will make money. Do you need that money more than ever, really, to kind of continue to keep the status quo financially? Yes, you do. The big question is, and this is what you're getting into, Chris, although I would look at it in the other direction of how PlayStation fans feel about it, is like, is there a value erosion to your platform by doing this with such a big and important game? And if so, what is the cost of that? And that's unquantifiable. But I actually think that Sony can't really know until they do it. As the audience knows, I've been very bullish on them. I guess you would call it going multi-platform in some way, being aggressive with Switch 2 ports, being aggressive with PC ports. Really, Xbox would be no different. I just think the equation with them from Sony's perspective is a little bit different. And you can see something like this in a different era blowing up in their face and eroding value and giving people less or fewer reasons to own a PlayStation. But perhaps they look at the situation with Xbox. We'll talk about later because so many people wrote in about it. We're going to dedicate some of the end of the show, the inquiries, to what's going on in that ecosystem. Perhaps you see it from a much different perspective where you're like, yeah, things are kind of going the way they're going now, and our releasing games on this platform is just value addition without really eroding our position on the market. And that's not the way it always was, but that is the way it is now. So I think it's a bold move, but I got to say I'm a little bit confused simply because they seem to go out of their way to withhold games from Xbox that wouldn't really matter going to Xbox, like Freedom Wars and Everybody's Golf and Patapon or whatever. It's like, you're not publishing those on Xbox, but you're publishing this on Xbox. So yeah. I think the signals are a little confused. It's like, why not just, if you're going to do it, you should just do it and see what happens. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I think the only thing that I can think of is my assumption is that they have some kind of, and to be fair, it's not hard to guess the metrics of the type of player that is on Xbox, but like I would imagine that they look at something like Helldivers 2, which is a live service, which is multiplayer and, benefits greatly from being on other platforms, not just from a la carte sales, but also obviously microtransactions. There's a cut of that goes. So I feel like they look at that and they understand that the type of player that is on an Xbox is likely a multiplayer oriented player who will undoubtedly be in for something like Helldivers, whereas something like Everybody's Golf or Freedom Wars maybe wouldn't make the necessary splash to be worth the time to port over, if that makes sense. Like, where I feel like it's more about like audience and how much they can extract out of the project. And I feel like Everybody's Golf is probably like not a huge, if you put Everybody's Golf on Xbox, like I don't imagine that you would see much in terms of like benefit, like I think that's like a very limited pool of people, I think. And also that begins and ends at the purchase. As far as I know, I don't know much about Everybody's Golf, but I don't think there's like, is there microtransactions in Everybody's Golf? I really have no idea.
Yet. I don't think I would imagine there probably will be. I mean, well, maybe not. Yeah. Maybe you just unlock everything, but there's so many outfits and characters and shit, but maybe that's just something you would unlock. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a kind of game that doesn't really lose much from being elsewhere because it just benefits from being a multiplayer game, and multiplayer games benefit from being everywhere. And it's the kind of game that's going to get a lot of people playing. It's the kind of game that's going to get a lot of Xbox players playing and paying consistently. And I think they look at that as like a lot more valuable than just putting Freedom Wars out there to make like chump change in comparison, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's a little, I get what you're saying, and I think you're right. I also just think, yeah, it's a little bit weird. Like, I wonder what we know that Marathon's now going to be published by, and I think it was always probably going to be a PlayStation published, but it was obviously this more internal Bungie project. And so that was always coming to Xbox. So that's going to be published by PlayStation as well. And we've noted that Sony games have long quietly gone to other platforms. I mean, we were talking about how, a game like Wipeout went to N64 during the PlayStation 1 era, made by a PlayStation studio. So, but they didn't publish it. So right. it is them kind of doing the heavy lifting. And I guess there's really, again, only one way to know. And it's putting your game out there. I am interested in how this is going to do. I wonder if it will benefit from what I think early PlayStation releases on Steam benefited from that the later PlayStation releases really didn't, which is just a novelty factor. And if I were an Xbox fan and I wanted more PlayStation games on Xbox, I would absolutely buy this game. And even if you're just trying to tip the scales or something, like, you got to buy this game if you're on Xbox, if you want to prove the point, because if this game doesn't do well, I don't know that they'll put themselves out there to do it again. And it makes me wonder where their minds are at with their single player fare. I'm curious too. I don't know if you guys saw the comments. A lot of people are asking if it's coming to Game Pass and all that kind of stuff. Like, I just wonder if people are really going to buy it or not. But I hope they do, because I think injecting more people into Helldivers 2 will only naturally keep it alive for longer. So it's fine with me. I don't really care, but I'm surprised by it. I'm definitely surprised. I was definitely wrong about my instinct that there was just no reason to do this. And I still think that there is downside from Sony's perspective for doing this, but they're doing it. And now I think the ball is in the Xbox fans' court to support the game. And it's a really, for people that, if we have a lot of Xbox players listening to our show, if you're not familiar with Helldivers or you're interested in it, it really is great. And it's a wonderful game to go check out. And I think $40 is a really reasonable cost, and you really don't have to spend any other money. You get a lot of, well, you can, and people do, as we just noted, but there you get a lot of kind of in-game currencies that you can spend on things that you would otherwise buy. So it's a fun game to grind through. Maybe I'll jump back in. I don't know. I doubt it, but all right. Any other thoughts on Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox? Very, very shocking news. Yeah. Definitely the biggest news of the week from our perspective.
Oh, what the part of the question about, was it Sony's plan all along?
Oh, yeah. We didn't get into that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good question. I honestly have no idea. My gut says no, because it seemed like they didn't, I don't want to say they didn't believe in this game, but it definitely felt like a major surprise. And I think that maybe based on the success and now the money, the continued revenue they're seeing from this game has got their mind thinking like, oh, well, yeah, there's a whole nother base of people that play this type of game that are hungry for it. They actively want it. Why not?
Yeah, there's a high novelty factor that I think will really do a nice job in buttressing these numbers on Xbox. Because if I were over there, I would definitely buy it. It's very similar to when Hi-Fi came out, and I was like, I gotta buy this. Are you kidding?
Right.
Like, I gotta buy it. It's so weird. But then as other games started flowing out, like I didn't buy Sea of Thieves or Grounded or anything like that. I didn't buy Forza. And so I think there'll be a tailing effect probably. But I'm curious what the a la carte sales reality truly is there, because you do hear from different sources, on the net, who knows who's trustworthy and who's not, but you hear a lot of scuttlebutt about some publishers questioning whether they want to bring future games to Xbox at all, if it's worth the lift of doing that. And that's what's interesting about this too, is that Sony must assume that this is going to work out well enough for them to keep like a concurrent 2 builds going, because it's Xbox Series X and S are different, and updating new core games and sending updates to these various platforms and having them speak to each other. It's not a trivial thing. So I assume that Sony's projections are pretty good for this, and it's going to be necessary, I think, to find new players for these multiplayer games for sure. I just, again, question why they're so catty with so many other things. I just think it would have gone in the other direction. That's what happened with Xbox. And I think that made more sense. Before we got fucking Gears, we got Pentiment.
Yeah.
So you would just think that they would have thrown something else out there first. And so let's go around the horn and say this, like, will there be more? And will they get into the single player games for Xbox? Dustin, what do you think?
No single player games. And I think the only reason that this would happen again is if they have another successful live service game, if they ever are able to pull that off again. And in that case, even, it's going to be a similar year plus till they do it. But I guess there is Marathon.
Yeah, Marathon, right. But that was like when Bungie...
different.
But who... Yeah, right. If Bungie wasn't in such a powerful position upon their purchase...
Right.
Would that have ever been announced for Xbox? In this new reality, it would come to Xbox. But I wonder if that would have been the same. I
think the answer.
What do you think, Chris?
I think the answer to that. Well, the answer to that question is like, obviously, Concord and Fair Games didn't come, or are not slated to come to Xbox, and so like, I don't think if Marathon was a Sony thing and Bungie didn't have that power, I think obviously Marathon would have been exclusive. But I feel like, do I think that there will be single player games? I don't think so. I think PlayStation's smart enough to understand that is kind of the siren song for the console. It's the thing that kind of draws people in, and multiplayer things. Their multiplayer their multiplayer projects are very, very ill-fated, with the exception of Helldivers, and I feel like that's kind of the only reason that they're even trying this. And so I feel, I don't think you're going to see single-player games. And to the effect that it wouldn't be until like every last bit of value is extracted out of Steam. Like you might see, the only way that I could see that happening is like maybe God of War 3, the third, whatever the third one is going to be called, comes out, and then maybe you see the first one like a little after that or something like that. Like, but it would be on such a delayed cadence as to be completely meaningless. So my short answer is no, you're not going to see single player stuff moving. And I don't know if there's going to be really any more after this, because this is really their only big live service of any note. I think
I mean, the show would be the other one, and that's already on Xbox. So
yeah, and so I just don't. I don't foresee. I think this is a very special kind of case, and I think it's them testing. And my gut is going to be that it's the Xbox audience is not trained to buy games, so like even though this is totally up their alley, I actually feel like it's going to do a lot softer than it should.
Interesting. Yeah, you would know better than me. I guess another question, a reasonable question, is like Switch 2. Could they get this running on Switch 2? If
that would
Series
be surprising.
S, yeah, I mean,
yeah, I would think that they would be able to get it running on Switch 2, being that they got it running on Series S. It's hard. Like right now, we're still kind of figuring out what the Switch 2 is fully capable of. And I certainly don't know enough about technical stuff as like to see comparing like a Series S versus Switch 2, but it would probably not be a very good experience with Switch's Wi-Fi and network capabilities, but maybe.
Well, we'll see what happens. This is a really interesting news. There is an opportunity cost here. And I think Sony has done the calculation, or at least they're going to test the theory that the opportunity cost, at least on these multiplayer games, and I think you guys are right. It's not like, I do think it would be a very dramatic thing to bring Uncharted to Xbox or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it would be a very dramatic thing to bring God of War, like we're saying, or Horizon. But you almost wonder, gosh, I wish this happened like yesterday, so I had more time to really think about it.
Right,
I literally woke up and did the notes and stuff, and like, there's so many things going through my mind about it. It's like, wouldn't you, if you're willing to do this with Helldivers reasonably enough, then wouldn't you want to just have the next one, like Fair Games, just come to Xbox immediately? Isn't the best chance of the game's success having the biggest player base at the beginning and then trickling away from there? There's obviously the other argument of like getting these new bounces by, all right, we release it here and then we release it here and like new, but I actually think you would want just everyone when the zeitgeist was hot there. And so it's like, wouldn't it be reasonable to consider, should this work for them? Let's say it works and Chris is wrong and more people buy it and it does well.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to just announce Fair Games for Xbox? And just say like, we're just going to release it everywhere at the same time and bolster these player bases. I don't know. So I think there's a lot going on here, because I think, to answer the question, which I've been avoiding, why not intentionally, but like, did they always have this on the cards? It's like, no, I don't think so. I think that,
yeah.
First of all, I think Helldivers 2 was the last game they thought was going to do this well. I think that that's fairly obvious from the way they treated it pre-release. Not that they did anything wrong, but they didn't make a big deal of it. They weren't like, it wasn't like this splashy release by any stretch of the imagination. It's, people became obsessed with it when it came out. And that's the funniest part of it, is like, they didn't even know what they had. And they've made bigger bets on other games that have blown up spectacularly in their face. So I actually just think the situation is materially changed where they probably look at it and say like, we need money. We're profitable, we're doing well, but we should be doing way better. And we've spent an enormous amount of money. And like, now it's time to explore where that money is going to come from. And so I think that's how you get things like Helldivers 2 on Xbox. But yeah, if that experiment works out well, I know it's hard. So much of the PlayStation audience gets mad at me all the time because I'm very aggro about going multi-platform in a lot of ways, where I'm like, I just think they should lean into some of these things specifically with PC, but also with Switch. And again, the only reason I don't feel like they should do it with Xbox is not because I dislike the brand. It's because I think that interferes with their own business. That's where you would draw the line. That's why Helldivers coming over is surprising. Not that they would go multi-platform, but that they're playing around in the one space that is a mirror image of their space. They don't want their customers to go there because they rely so much on all of their tangential purchases, which is why I've been arguing about the Steam Xbox thing making no sense. So that's it. That's the reason why I'm surprised that anything would come to Xbox. It's not that they shouldn't or wouldn't necessarily. It's that I thought that there was a real opportunity cost there that they didn't identify with, say, Switch, where people really rely on first-party content there, or the Switch is like their tangential machine, and PC, where I think the crossover between console and PC gamers has been vastly overstated. And I think you see that in the shrinking of the numbers of PlayStation games as the je ne sais quoi surrounding their release on Steam dissipates after every release. That's how you get games like The Last of Us Part 1 substantially underperforming a game like Days Gone on PC because of that specialness. So we'll have to revisit this maybe next week because there's so much more to say. I need more space to think about it.
Yeah, it is kind of like hot off the presses as we're recording.
Interesting date, and I think it's been noted in one of the letters. August 26th is the same day that Gears comes out. A postscript would be like, is there room for the idea that there is for lack of a better term, a quid pro quo, where like, are Sony and Microsoft speaking and extracting value out of each other, knowing it's going to cost both of them some of the shine they have with their hardcore audience? Or are they acting independently from one another? Because I wouldn't be surprised deals like that are made all the time in other venues. You give us this and this, we give you this and this. You are willing to do this, we're willing to do this. I just would love to know how these conversations went. And
yeah,
I want to know, Nixus has been working on this. I assume this has been in play for all year. So you would assume if it's coming out in August, so secret well kept. They must have been really told to shut the fuck up because this didn't leak at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think I wouldn't have believed it if it did leak. I mean, people were saying conversations around this were happening and I didn't believe it. Now, who knows if they were really privy to those conversations? But in the main, they were right. So you got to acknowledge
crazy. It is just a weird. It's just so unprecedented and a lot. And again, not just from the show and Marathon. There's a very like hyper specific situations. Like this is like it's interesting times, man. Well, and the date is interesting. The date that it's like that it's on the same day as Gears is interesting to me.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if that's a I don't want to say it's not a coincidence, but it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
But and again, so when I woke up to the news, I was reading about it and I was like, and I was kind of groggy eyed or whatever. And I was like, yeah, all right. Like, and my assumption was Arrowhead itself was going to just do it and that they had permission or for something in there. Maybe even, this gets really deep into the weeds, but you have to assume that Arrowhead have contracts that were set up before the game came out to support the game. And now that the game is so much bigger, they probably have an insane amount of leverage over Sony to like, you imagine it's like we sign I'm just making these numbers up because I don't really know. We have a contract for X amount of money to support the game for 12 months after it comes out. These contracts were signed 2 months before the game came out. Now this is what the game looks like. And these are our terms to proceed. We need more we have a revenue split. We want a bigger audience. So we're bringing our game to Xbox. But I don't think that that's the way it happened. But you can imagine conversations like that happening and the amount of leverage Arrowhead has over Sony and that they're very willing to not only not work with Sony in the future on a future game, but be public about that. indicates to me that there's a weirdness. I don't know. I feel like Sony kind of fucked up Helldivers with the PSN stuff through the eyes of a lot of people. And I wonder if, so you would just love to be a fly on the wall for all of these kinds of things. But what I was saying was that, so I saw the news and I'm like, that's truly surprising. I would have bet $1,000 that wouldn't have happened. And I would have lost my $1,000, like no doubt. But then I was like, oh, I wonder who's publishing it. So I assumed Arrowhead was. And then when I went to the store, like the Xbox store page for it, it was like PlayStation Publishing. I was like, what?
Yeah. Trippy.
Like they didn't even feign to use a 505 Games or something or a Bandai to keep distance. Not that those would have been good partners for this game, but you understand what I'm saying. And 505 actually probably would have been a fine partner for this. But that they're doing it themselves, they're like, no, we want the money. So that's another, we're not like sub-licensing at that point where, and again, it's not like Death Stranding, because Death Stranding is no longer owned by Sony. So yeah, there's so much to say about this. Really, really interesting news. Big news of the week. And came at the right time, I think, for Xbox to kind of, there's a lot of, we're going to talk about it later in the show because people really want to get into it, but everything that happened with Xbox this week.
Yeah.
Good news, right off the bat from their arch rival. Very interesting. Very interesting. But that date was identified probably months ago of like, this is when we're going to announce it. And so they did. Helldivers 2, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, August 26th, believe it or not. Show future column this. All right. We have some information here that otherwise would have been the biggest news of the week. That's not very big news, it's big, but not very interesting, I don't think. Comes from Naughty Dog. It says, quote, and this is from Neil Druckmann himself in a little statement. I've made the difficult decision to step away from my creative involvement in The Last of Us on HBO. With work completed on season 2 and before any meaningful work starts on season 3, now is the right time for me to transition my complete focus to Naughty Dog and its future projects, including writing and directing our exciting next game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, along with my responsibilities as studio head and head of creative. Co-creating the show has been a career highlight. It's been an honor to work alongside Craig Mazin to executive produce, direct, and write on the last 2 seasons. I'm deeply thankful for the thoughtful approach and dedication the talented cast and crew took to adapting The Last of Us Part 1 and the continued adaptation of The Last of Us Part 2, end quote. Very interesting news. Aram wrote in and says, hey guys, as I'm sure you've heard, Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann is stepping away from The Last of Us on HBO to focus on the studio and developing Intergalactic. I can't help but feel that the second season's metrics not reaching the heights of season 1 may have influenced his decision, and dare I say, might have left HBO a bit unimpressed. Dustin, what are your thoughts on this news?
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to look at it. First of all, they are at the point where with Intergalactic and assuming some other projects that they really do need his full focus as they are trying to ship these games. And being a showrunner on an HBO show, I'm sure, is very time consuming. So that makes a lot of sense that now is a clean breaking point. From my perspective, it's hard to tell, like, with this most recent season 2, I think universally people agree it was not as good as the first season. Diverted, made a lot of changes. Some scenes just read completely differently, and not in good ways. I don't know if that was Craig Mazin. I have to assume it is, and not Neil. So to me, I wonder if there was already some conflict in the writer's room between them. This is pure speculation. No idea. And it was getting to the point where Neil felt like he might have just, this might not have been for him anymore. Maybe he was getting in the way, because the episode that he directed of the show was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the best episode of that season. So for me, this Last of Us on HBO already was massively down for me. And based on my assumptions of Neil's involvement with season 2 or the lack thereof in certain ways, I have very little optimism for season 3 now. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
What are your thoughts, Chris, on Neil stepping back from the HBO show and moving back into his tasks at Naughty Dog? I will say, I mean, to preface your answer is that when we spoke on Sacred Symbols Plus weeks ago, he did note that like we talked about the cycle of like people cycling out of games and into TV and movies and kind of never coming back, and that he was really a game maker first. And so maybe he was kind of alluding to this move ultimately.
Yeah. I don't know. I think my instinct is to say that the write-up isn't wrong. You know, like I do think that Naughty Dog probably does need their studio head back, especially as they like start ramping up. I mean, it's July 2025. This Heretic Prophet game is, you know, presumably about a year away.
No, more than that, I think.
Yeah. You think so? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately. Yeah.
Presumably, like bare minimum a year and like some odd months, you know. And so like you got to get your guy back in. And I also just feel like it might not be all that hard to fathom that people are not having a great time with The Last of Us 2 again. I don't know if this is really an environment that I want to be in again. I think it's a completely human thing. You're like, it's like, all right, people are being weird about the cast. People are being parasocial about the actors, and you know, I feel like he did what he could, and it's kind of like a bucket list thing. It's like I got to direct for HBO. Cool, I'm going to go back to my job now. You know?
Yeah, I don't think
I don't read too deeply into it.
Yeah, I don't think there's he's, you know, Neil's written other things like comics and stuff like that. Like he wants to be like a multimedia writer. But I do think he's a game maker first. And I do feel like people are a little too hard on, listen, like, do I have a bias? Yes. So take what I say with a grain of salt. I mean, I should present it that way, but I feel like it's fairly clear that people are blaming him for what is going wrong with the HBO show, when I think it's fairly clear it's not him. And if anything, it's his lack of involvement, or like, I don't want to say lack of involvement, that he's not involved more is what stopped it from being better. I'm looking now at season 2. It's like episode 1 written by Craig Mazin, episode 2 written by Craig Mazin, episode 3 written by Craig Mazin, episode 4 written by Craig Mazin, episode 5 written by Craig Mazin. He doesn't even start co-writing until the 6th and 7th episodes, in which Craig is the lead writer along with Hallie Gross, who co-wrote The Last of Us Part 2, the game. He directed one episode, which I would argue is maybe the best episode of the season, which is The Price. Where they go to the museum. And so I think the show is worse off without him. And I think that, and again, I don't speak with him about his like work stuff and things, like we don't, so like it's none of this is coming from any conversations we've had or whatever. It's just like, my assumption is that he has to make a choice, because there aren't enough hours in the day to do everything to the proper degree. And why associate yourself with something that's not quite the way you would have made it, probably, if you did it yourself? And again, I don't know that for sure, but that's kind of my feeling on it. In other words, if he had he is the head of Naughty Dog. It's not like he's just the director of Intergalactic, and he's also the producer of their unannounced game, which some people think is an Uncharted game. And it's like, that's a huge, it's like me with Last Stand and then having Lilymo. Very different things, of course, but it's like, I can barely pay attention to Lilymo. I have like my hands full, and it's probably frustrating to see something be poorly received, or more poorly received by many people. Although again, that's relative, because a lot of people really loved it. It seems like people that aren't familiar with the games really love the show. Like my sister, I was using as an anecdotal piece of evidence. Like she has no idea about the drama around the game. And like, she's like, this is fucking awesome. I can't wait for season 3. So I don't want to be too harsh on it, but I think it's probably difficult to kind of tangentially be involved with something, but not involved enough to have your hands deepened enough to have crafted it deep and molded the clay deep enough, but then people still stamp your name on it.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to be in that position. Now that's just me spitballing. That might not be it at all, but I feel like there's probably something to that, especially because if they haven't started work on the new season yet, they're not going to film it till next year, and it won't be out probably till 2027. And he's going to be fucking ass deep in Intergalactic by that point. I mean, now you're going to start talking about when the game's going to start coming out and stuff. So you got to make a choice. And I think he's more valuable to the gaming industry than he is to film and television. I think he knows that. And it's probably exhausting to have he has kids and shit, like it's probably really demanding. So that's I don't have any other thoughts other than that. I do think it's interesting though. And I'm glad he made the choice he made, because someone like that could be, will be, and would be, and probably was being courted in many different directions. But knowing a person like Neil, like what I think he would think is like, when you've risen to the head of a studio in which you were the intern for at one point, which he was, and now you lead the studio and you direct their games and stuff, it's like you've made it. You're at the top of the mountain. You don't want anything else. And I get that. So
yeah,
that's awesome. That's what I used to want at IGN. I started as the intern and I rose and rose and rose to senior editor and stopped. But it's like I had dreams of being like, the bottom to top kind of person too. And I get that. So these are all just notions and ideas. Who the hell knows what's in his head? I have not talked to him about it. So, all right, Neil, get to work on Intergalactic. All right, guys. I saw this piece that's been circulating on the tech website Tom's Guide entitled PS5 Pro is getting a big upgrade in 2026. And I asked Mark Cerny, that being them, what's coming and why AMD's future PC GPUs feel more PlayStation than ever. So the big thing I took out of this, there were two things that I took out of this that I thought were interesting, but I kind of told you guys I need you to study this piece and explain it to me a little bit better, because this is kind of out of my wheelhouse. I'm not a technical person, as everyone knows. You shouldn't listen to me on that sort of thing. But so Dustin, tell me if I'm right about this. The two big things here is that PS5 Pro is getting an update to the PSSR upscaling technology next year that will make the games even better looking, apparently. And that the PS6 is a real thing now that's being bandied about and worked on. And you see a vacillation of dates kind of noted, not in this piece, but just other places where some people are saying 27 or 28. Some people are saying 28 or 29. But it seems like Sony's in bed with AMD to work on something. This connects in some way to, I guess, this Project Amethyst that's being worked on between PlayStation and AMD. So explain to me what's going on here.
Yeah, so PSSR, PlayStation Super Sampling, I can't remember. What it does is it works like DLSS or FSR, which it uses an AI algorithm in that the game can render at 900p, 1080p, and then it uses AI to upscale the image. So your device itself is rendering at a lower resolution, and then it's using AI to get the rest of the way there. So because there's less strain on the hardware, you're able to do more things. That's not just like brute forcing either the resolution or the frame rate. So in the PC space with DLSS, we have seen things where they've updated the algorithm in order for it to run better. There's less AI artifacting. In fact, there's even programs where there's older games that run on an older model of DLSS that you can inject the new model in order to get a better image overall. So my assumption, this is kind of the same thing happening here, is that they are continually working on and improving PSSR. And so it'll be neat that through a software upgrade, you're going to see an improvement on PS5 Pro without needing, new hardware. It's just going to be a software update because they're continually working on PSSR to make it better. I'm curious about how significant this will be. I'm playing Death Stranding 2 right now, which we're going to talk about, that uses PSSR. I guess I should double check that. I would assume it does. But even other games that use PSSR, you can kind of see the cracks in it every now and then, whether it's like in darker scenes, it being a little grainy. In Silent Hill 2, you could definitely see some of the ghosting of different particles on the screen. And both of those are results or artifacts of upscaling via AI. So yeah, it's interesting. They talk a lot in this article about how AMD and Sony are working together. That's Project Amethyst. And so they're working on this together in that you're going to see those improvements on PS5, but also in AMD cards in general on PC. And my big question is that Xbox is working with AMD for their next hardware platform, whatever that is. And the future of game rendering is AI. AI upscaling, AI frame generation, things like that. So in a way, it seems like some of that PlayStation technology and research is going into possibly that next Xbox as well. Not that Xbox is going to be running their brand of PSSR, but certainly it's going to use FSR 4, which is Fidelity FX Super Resolution. So the same concept though. So it definitely seems like PS5 Pro, and I think they mentioned this early on, is that they are really working out the kinks on this technology. And so this is going to be one of the primary things in PlayStation 5 Pro, is using AI in all these different ways to make games better.
Chris, are you compelled by anything in this article? I shared this with you guys on Discord yesterday because it really is a little, I mean, I want to say a little, really out of my wheelhouse, but it's been, widely reported everywhere. And so you guys being much more technical than me, I figured we'd present it through your lens.
Yeah, I mean, look, I gotta be real. Like, I do feel like the PS5 Pro as it exists, or just PlayStation in general as it exists for my needs, is completely fine. Like, as long as I'm hitting frame rates that I deem appropriate, like I really don't care about like the deeper, hidden masses of quality that I might not be seeing. So a lot of this is like, it's good to know about. It's good to know that it's being worked on and things are improving. But like, I don't know if it really materially changes things for me in any real way. And until I start seeing games run like PS4 games again, in which case I'll be like, the first person to be like, yeah, let's get this sorted, please.
Yeah.
But
I don't get excited about graphical stuff really myself anymore. Like it's clear that their focus on, and I know that graphical could also be frame rate, obviously, but I'm talking about like the aesthetic, the resolution,
sure,
the depth of the picture and all the rest, like color quality and everything. I think that's all really cool, but it's clear that, because I agree with you, I'd rather have a pretty game that runs really well. And it's clear that we seem to be in the minority on this, that people want these really beautiful pictures and they're really focused on making it happen. While for me, I'm like, damn, I look at Death Stranding 2. I have not started playing it, but I just see people's screenshots from photo mode and stuff. And I'm like, this is pretty fucking impressive. I mean, it's getting to a point where I'm like, I don't know how much more real you want it to get. And I can't really understand what the push for better graphics are, like the finer graphics and the high resolution stuff, unless you're going for, realistic aesthetics, which is cool, but it's not necessarily what I'm looking for. I'm like, everything's kind of good now. I want you to maximize what you can do inside a game now, as opposed to the way the game looks. More dynamic NPCs and AI and quests and things like that.
Well,
like that's more interesting to me.
The thing to me too that really takes a lot of the wins out of the sales is that like I feel like we reached a point a long time ago, I think, where how good a game looks really isn't about the hardware anymore. It's really more about like the dev talent. Like, because I look at something like Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS4, right? And Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS4 looks gorgeous. It's a beautiful game. And I look at that and I'm like, well, that's on a PS4. So clearly, like, even if you had twice this power, 5 times this power, it's like, cool, your average game is going to look better. That's nice. But ultimately, it really still comes down to like, well, look what Rockstar did with the PS4. I wonder what they're going to do with the PS5. You know what I mean? It's more about like the devs individually anyway at this point, where, a game looking good is no longer impressive to me because I just know it's relatively trivial compared to how it used to be so long ago. So while I think a lot of this stuff is interesting, and I definitely tune into my fair share of Digital Foundry videos where I watch them and I am interested, although I have no idea what's going on, but I nod along like I do. Like I know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah. The pixel density, yeah.
Yeah. I find it kind of boring personally, but I appreciate that people are into it and that it matters to them. And obviously it is foundational to the video games we play. But yeah, the technology is, then again, dude, like, don't listen to people like me, because
true.
I probably would have said this 5 other times in games history. Like when I first saw a fucking PS2 game or something, I was like, holy fuck. The bouncer is crazy.
This is the shadows in like the original Splinter Cell. You're like, how could it get better than this?
Right. Like, I remember water specifically in like the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era, where I was like, damn, there's some really, like Wind Waker. And I was like, these games are beautiful, stylistic, obviously.
Yeah.
And then PS3, the same thing, seeing early games like Heavenly Sword, and you're like, damn. And so don't listen to me. But it's something worth noting nonetheless. PS5 Pro getting its PSSR update in 2026, and then some chatter about PlayStation 6 as well. And we'll see. I mean, I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no.
I was going to say, like, we have to start getting our minds right. That we have to start talking about PlayStation 6 earnestly soon. And you're about to find out why. But how does that strike you? Been doing the show for a long time.
That's so disgusting, man. Like I don't like that at all. Because it doesn't feel, and again, it's not even necessarily about the fact that we've been doing the show for that long to enough to see this happen, but more so that like this generation has been so uniquely. I know that the sparseness of things to play on this generation has been greatly over exaggerated, but like the output per developer, per studio, with the exception of Insomniac, who's actually been doing a pretty good job upholding a fairly old school cadence. It feels like it hasn't really even happened yet. It kind of feels like it's at the beginning still, in a lot of ways. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the weird time warp of the pandemic, those weird 2 years. But yeah, it's uncomfortable that the PS6 is just like not a joke hypothetical anymore.
No, it's not.
Because I remember distinctly when we started the show that sounded absurd. Like when we started this, it's like the PS6. That's insane.
What are your thoughts? How do you feel? Are you girding your loins?
I'm excited. I don't know. For me, I'm in a weird spot because with PC and having a 4090, I would be really surprised if a PS6 is as good as a 4090. So I kind of feel like I'm already like the way that PC graphics have been moving compared to console graphics, which they are different demographics at very different price points. And I think that's something important to point out. But either way, I still end up playing most of my games on a console because it's just easier and convenient. I like playing on a couch. So we used to have dev cycle or console cycles that were 5 years. So
True. Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm ready to start talking about PS6. I guess.
Too bad.
I'm not surprised by it.
It's too bad because it sounds like Firesprite is hiring for a PlayStation 6 game. That's our next.
Oh, hey, wait, Colin.
Yeah.
I was waiting to make a correction on myself, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but now I have to.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Death Stranding 2, I don't think uses PSSR. If you wrote a comment about it,
delete it.
I don't want you to delete it. I want you to edit and apologize.
Oh.
Just quickly. But I think it's because Decima uses their own in-house scaling technology. So I was wrong about that. Please burn me at the stake.
By the way, we're going to talk a little bit about this because I beat Director's Cut a day or two ago, and Insomniac and Bend are in the credits. That interesting? Pretty interesting.
Weird.
But speaking of first-party studios, as I was segueing before, Firesprite This is, of course, the Sony-owned studio over in Liverpool, England, that is best known ignominiously for Horizon Call of the Mountain, although they made the game The Persistence, which was a fairly well-respected horror game that was originally PSVR, and then they brought it over to be playable on, just normally on a normal screen. And then they did Call of the Mountain, and they're working on a new game. We don't really know exactly what it is, but I thought... So this job listing is circulating because it seems to indicate maybe a little bit about the nature of the game, that it's AAA, story-driven and all of that. And so people are focusing on that, but I'm like, what are people missing about what I think is the most interesting part of this? So here's what it says, quote, "We are looking for an experience-driven planner with a background in cinematic production for games. You will be leading interdisciplinary teams," and I don't know why the L is capitalized in leading, "including camera, VFX, and lighting artists, editors, cinematic designers, and animators. You are an expert in collaborating across cinematic fields to make memorable, emotional, and cinematic experiences with a strong understanding of narrative, cinematic production, and post-production pipelines within video games. This is an ambitious AAA project with a heavy focus on atmosphere, storytelling, player agency, and immersion into groundbreaking territory on next-generation hardware technologies." Seems pretty blatant to me. And as I saw the various websites reporting on this, I'm like, no one is talking about it. It says next generation hardware technologies. It's a PlayStation 6 game. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I mean, why not? Let's get it over with. Let's just pull the Band-Aid. Put it out now. Get the machine out now. Yeah, I mean, look, it's... I can't say I'm necessarily all that interested in... look, it's cool that we're getting these now, or it's interesting that we're getting these now, and the language is a lot more clear, where it's just like, yeah, this is clearly PS6. I didn't play Call of the Mountain. I heard almost exclusively
it's fun.
Negative to almost worse than negative, which was kind of apathetic commentary about the game. So I can't say I'm necessarily all that piqued. I don't know if my interest is all that piqued by this studio making something for next gen specifically, but it is interesting that it's kind of open with the language, and it's like, oh well, this is happening now, full steam ahead, for PS6. I don't know, man. It feels so weird still to be even saying that.
Dustin, am I reading this right?
Oh yeah, certainly. Next generation hardware. It's interesting they're not working on a VR game, but not surprising.
Yeah, that would be a waste at this point, I think.
Sony's first party VR days are over. Enjoy your global warming demo, whatever. That's the best you're getting.
Well, it is funny how they never really were able to get anything meaningful spooled up internally. Not that they tried very much, but even a game like Riggs, which I thought was kind of cool, it wasn't a game people really cared about. They just, yeah. And I think Call of the Mountain was, I didn't finish it. I was like, this is fucking boring.
God.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm curious to see what this team can do outside of the VR space, and so kind of be their first really big outing for Sony, because Call of the Mountain, as we've been saying, was cool. It was cool to get that AAA VR experience. Visually, technically, beautiful game. Just not very great to play. So
the game part of it was,
the whole game part was kind of mid.
Yeah,
so
the whole central thesis for why it exists was kind of not good.
So people can go check this out on the PlayStation careers page if you want. It's always a good place that if you're a nerd, you can troll around there and find things. This is for a lead cinematic producer in Liverpool for Firesprite, and I'm particularly interested in this part of it because I think that it shows that they're looking for someone of a high enough skill that they're going to have room to maneuver. It says, ideally, quote, ideally, individuals to be based in the studio for 1 to 3 days per week to take advantage of on-site shoot facilities. But we may consider those who have a preference for remote working in the UK, end quote. That, when you see things like that, they're looking for a very high caliber person, in my opinion, because those are the kinds of people that can really move around and easily find positions. If you are able to exercise remote working potential, even in this far post-COVID era where a lot of people are being sent back to the office, I think that's pretty interesting. All right. we'll keep an eye out on that, I guess. I'm sure we'll see more of this. They are basically, I don't want to say they missed the generation because they really didn't. They made a PS5 game technically, but okay. This is interesting to me and huge news actually, in that EA Sports and 2K Sports are both hinting that they are going to bring back college basketball. And EA Sports hasn't published a college basketball game since 2009. And I think it's even been earlier since 2K published one, but they both had fairly vibrant products. 2K College Hoops, I think, was one of them, in college. EA College Basketball, I think, was the other one. I know you guys won't have anything to say about this, and frankly, I don't have much to say about it either. I'm not I like the game of basketball. I think the game of basketball is dope, but I'm not a college basketball fan by any stretch of the imagination, so I don't watch it, but I know how big it is. I'm a sports person. I always got Sports Center on in the background if I'm, dicking around in the living room or whatever, and, listening to sports podcasts and stuff. So I'm aware of the things that are going around, and similar to college football, though not anywhere to the degree of college football. College basketball has always been big, but it seems to be becoming bigger and more mainstream. And now is the time to jump and leap into these products, especially because from the player, there's no player associations really covering college athletics, but from the player association type perspective, there's money to be made now. These guys can make $500, $1,000 or whatever each appearing on the rosters of these various games. And I was reading a piece from a website that covers, I guess, the economics of sports. It really has nothing to do with games. But the guy was basically saying, it was a Substack, and he was basically saying that there was really no intention of ever returning to college basketball until EA's college football came back and was so huge that, according to this person, it even broke EA's own internal high end projections. That's how big it was. And as we said, it was arguably the biggest game of the year in the United States, which is crazy. And so I think they looked at that and said, man, if we could even get half of that from college basketball. Now, the interesting thing here, and again, you guys wouldn't know or care about this, but sports game fans will know this well, is that EA used to make an NBA game that they would intermittently release in more recent years, and then they just stopped releasing them. You guys remember, they canceled it one year. They released it and then walked away from it one year. They didn't even announce one year. I think it was called NBA Elite. And then I think in 17 or 18, they just stopped making them completely. The NBA scene in gaming is now dominated by Take-Two. And 2K is arguably the best selling and most important sports game in the United States, at least before college football came back out. So just from the rivalry between EA Sports and 2K, in which they really don't, EA doesn't make an NBA game, but 2K doesn't make a hockey game, and 2K doesn't make a football game, but EA doesn't, or until recently, didn't make a tennis game. So they kind of they almost had a Comcast Verizon cartel situation going on. You know what I mean? Where just coincidentally, you can't have any choice with your cable provider. But so this is an interesting thing where they're both going after the same prize, and I do think Take-Two has a huge advantage because they already have a basketball product, not only up and running, but one that is incredibly popular that they can build off of. So I won't put it to you guys to talk any further about it, but I wanted to acknowledge that happened. And then finally, just a little bit of fun news here. This comes from Yahoo, but everyone's talking about this. The Street Fighter live action movie is being cast, and I was curious if you guys had any thoughts on who's playing who and anything that makes sense to you. We have Jason Momoa as Blanca, for instance. Kalina Lang as Chun-Li, one of my favorites. Anything stand out to you, Dustin? Oh, 50 Cent is Balrog.
The one that is odd to me is that Andrew Scholes is in this movie as Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan.
Hibiki.
Yeah, Dan's a joke character in Street Fighter. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at it because I was trying to find an article that had photos of all the actors. This describes him as a comedian and manosphere podcaster. Boys, are we manosphere podcasters?
I hope not.
What does that mean?
But we are inherently, we have a very male dominated audience, but that's not, I don't think we're in the, so maybe we're in the manosphere. I don't know.
Are we in the manosphere?
But yeah, I saw that casting and I thought that was interesting. But if you know Street Fighter, Dan is do you know anything about Dan? He's an awesome character. He comes from, I believe, Street Fighter Alpha 1, is I think the first game he was in, but he's in the same vein as a Ryu and Ken, but he's he doesn't know what he's doing. So like he throws a fireball, but it stops like right in front of him. Or he does like a hurricane kick, but he only does one hurricane kick because he's like not as talented as Ken and Ryu. And it's super awesome. Like you can really play as him and actually win as him, but it's super awesome because he's like basically an inhibited Ryu character, Ken character. And Ken has been my guy for a long time. So it's really, really funny. And he's like he has like bravado and he's super arrogant. I remember in Street Fighter Alpha 2, everyone has a super move or whatever. And his super move was just to taunt you. Like it didn't do any damage. He would just like talk shit, like wave his fist or whatever. It was super cool. So yeah, that casting through that lens makes sense, in my opinion. Dan Hibiki. Chris, any thoughts here on the casting? Are we in the Manosphere, Chris?
I don't think so. No, Manosphere is so specific. Where like it's like when I think of a Manosphere podcast, I think of those like just like a bunch of people sitting at a table and they have like I don't know, an OnlyFans model on and they just like trash her or something, and it's just like that's the whole show, and it's just like I don't know, it's weird stuff. But as far as the casting, like dude, I don't know Street Fighter enough to know if this is good or bad. Like my first instinct when I saw Andrew Schultz was like, what? Why? What? It's almost like Kevin Hart in Borderlands, where I'm just like, you don't need these people.
Well, it is a little weird. Just I don't know Andrew Schultz's like build, but Ken is jacked. I'm not sorry, not Ken. Dan is jacked, which is another funny part of it.
Andrew Schultz is definitely not jacked.
Yeah, so that's going to be like a miss. Is like he is like a jacked character, like a meathead.
Yeah, no, I think Andrew Schultz is weird. Like he presents like he wants to be, but he's very clearly not. I don't know. Andrew Schultz is weird. Like I've seen some of his comedy and I like it, but like every time I see him on a podcast, he comes across as like very, I don't know. It's almost like it's like reverse charisma. I don't know. It's crazy.
You guys have to look up Dan gameplay at some point. It's so fun. Like it's so funny. Like what he does. Like I just love how he has like a Hadouken, but it just like it only is useful if the guys are right in front of you and then it disappears off the screen. It's really cool.
Dan Street Fighter.
And like, yeah, the hurricane kick with just one kick instead of like going in the air. All right, my boys, it's time to talk about what we're playing. I'll go first. And I can go relatively quickly, although we have some inquiries I want to get to, I guess. Death Stranding Director's Cut, still playing it, but I did beat it. Once you get, it's funny, the middle of the game is so, it's not bloated, it's fun, but there's no pacing to the chapters. There are chapters that like are 20 minutes long, and then there are chapters that you can literally play for 25 hours. So by the time you get to the end of the game, you actually get to kind of a point of no return. After the point of no return, the game cleverly does figure out a way to put you back into the world so you can finish what you were doing. But which I didn't do the first time I played the game, and when I discovered that, I was like, oh, that's really cool how they do that. But once you reach that point of no return, you're like 5 chapters away from the end, but only like 5 hours probably. And most of it is cutscenes. So I beat it. It's awesome. I have some complaints about it in that I think this is what I said the first time Chris and I covered it back in 2019 is it's most fun when you don't have to fight. And even the director's cut adding a lot of things to make fighting easier and more pleasurable, as it were. I just feel like the game would have been much better to have been focused on non-violence and in fact compare to contrast the non-violence of the potential game with the violence of the world as opposed to making you participate in it. And I still think it's the worst part of the game. But I think the story's awesome. The characters are awesome. The voice acting is awesome. And the delivery gameplay is so fun. It has no business being so fun. And I'm sure Death Stranding 2 takes that to a whole nother level, and I'll let you guys get into that. But I just want to give my compliments to the game again. I actually went and looked at my trophies for the PS4 version after I beat the game, and it's crazy how much more complete I played at this time. So like I didn't even get the trophy for doing like 55 standard orders or something in the first time I played it, which I got like really quickly this time around. I didn't get the trophy for getting 50,000 likes. I have like 320,000 likes in my game right now. So I'm playing it so much more deeply, and I think I've gotten so much more out of it from playing it that way. So while the game I think is imperfect, it is unlike anything, and I highly recommend it. let's see here. Jay Bird wrote in and said, hello, boys. I have a rather deep and heavy inquiry this week. Wait a second. Hold on. Is that a new road that can be built? It must be built. Every road must be built. Every road must be maintained. Every road must be built. Every road must be maintained. I can't stop. Someone please help. Wait, I see a new road that can be built. I get it. I just get it. I do hate the timefall decay of the things you built, that you have to maintain things. It's a little annoying, but I get it. What is Sam Porter Bridges wearing, by the way, that allows him to go unaffected? And why isn't everything made of that?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, the Fragile has that umbrella too.
Right.
Yeah, just build everything out of that.
Right. Like I guess I'm just curious. Like, you know, Sam has his suit on. He's unaffected by the timefall. He has packages on his back made of metal that are affected by the timefall.
Yeah.
It's like just get like a little cape and pop it over the packages, and then nothing would be affected by the timefall.
Isn't that something you can get in the game?
I didn't get anything like that, but maybe. Yeah.
I think there is, and even the first Death Stranding, there's like a cover for your packages.
Oh yeah, I never built that, but I have to do the trophy for building everything, so I will eventually build it.
Yeah,
believe me.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think I remember seeing like it's like a foil or something that goes around.
It's like a space.
Yeah, I believe you. I
Yeah.
didn't build almost anything in the game except for roads, and I would make the occasional gun or vehicle. You know, like a car or whatever, or the little rover van or whatever.
Fucking Volvo.
Vicolis wrote in and said, howdy, home slices. Let me start by saying LSM is my favorite podcast and gaming news source, and I've been listening since day one. Thank you. But I find myself getting earnestly mad when I hear Colin talk about playing Death Stranding for as long as he is. This isn't just a Death Stranding thing. I kind of get mad anytime I hear you people at LSM are taking 100 plus hours to finish games. As I age and am now into my 30s with a full-time job and other responsibilities to attend to, I have significantly less time to play games, but I have no less interest in games as a hobby. And it can often feel like people who play games for 100 plus hours are almost flaunting their free time in my face. Let me be clear. I don't think that this is what any of you are doing, and I want people to play games how they enjoy, but I guess I almost feel left behind by the games industry and gaming news shows. Like, I can't enjoy games how I want while I listen to people who get to do it for their job. Are you getting a full experience than I am for playing for 100 hours? It can often feel that way. Like, I'm not getting the experience the full game with my limited free time, and there are games I might enjoy but shouldn't even bother with. There's not really a question here, just some statements about my weird feeling on listening to news shows. Maybe I need to take a break, or maybe this is my new normal. Anyway, LSM is the absolute best, and I am stoked to hear your thoughts on Death Stranding 2. I thought this was an interesting letter. It was mildly funny, a little sarcastic, but there's something here to it that I understand. And I feel this way about sports, as we were talking about earlier. I think something you guys can't relate to, but a lot of the audience certainly can. I watch every Jets game every year, and I have for many years, but that's very manageable. It's one game a week for 17 games now, and the Jets never make the playoffs, so there's nothing after that. And so if you have to plan your life around one game a week, or like plan to just be available, that's easy enough. But when I was younger, I was a huge baseball fan, loved baseball. And I was a huge Yankees fan. And I shit you not, when I was 14, 15, 16, 20, I would watch basically every Yankee game. That's 162 games plus playoffs, to the point where you're watching 6 games a week on Yes Network in New York. And that became totally untenable by the time I was midway through college, where it's like, I have no time. Like, I used to look forward to it. The games usually would start at 7. If they were on the West Coast, they'd start at 10 or whatever. You would like do what you had to do during the day, and then you kind of settle in. And it wasn't like you were actively engaged with all 9 innings, but it would be on in the background, or you'd be doing something else. And sometimes you would be engaged with it and you'd watch it, but I was always aware of it, and I would never really miss anything. And then as I became older and I became busier, and then I got a job and all these different things, and like a real job, and had to work, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I stopped watching baseball completely, because I was like, if I can't watch it to the way I want to watch it, I don't even want to participate in it. And Nicholas's letter kind of struck me, because I was like, yeah, I can kind of relate. I get exactly what you mean. But here, very similar to being a Yankee fan, here's what you have to understand about gaming. a minority of baseball fans watch every game. I would argue most baseball fans miss most of the games. It's not possible to watch them all. There's life going on. You pay attention to the box score. You watch Sports Center. You watch highlights, whatever. 13% of people that played Death Stranding Director's Cut beat it. People that are spending 100 hours with it are in the vast minority of people. A vanishingly small amount of people have played it as extensively as I have. And you see people all around you, by seemingly the millions, that profess that they've gotten something meaningful out of this game. And they're not playing it as deeply. So there's a strata in which you're going to fall in time-wise, but you're going to get something out of it regardless, and you shouldn't worry about what other people are doing. But it's easier said than done. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I get it. It's exactly what happened to me with the Yankees. I started to resent like how I would turn on AM radio when I was at IGN, doing my work, and I would turn on like the radio module to listen to New York radio, and it would be these guys talking about the game last night, and I missed it, and then I'm 2 games behind, and then I'm 3 games behind, and I just don't have time to catch up, and it's like, yeah, man, fuck this. I get it. But try to disassociate yourself from that. If you can.
Yeah.
The great Santini wrote in and said, hey boys, with Death Stranding and its sequel currently on everyone's minds, a question has come to mind. Does anyone else play these games in offline mode? I played Death Stranding for the first time when the Director's Cut came out for PS5. I started my playthrough in the default online mode, but quickly came to lament how much of the game was already completed for me. Bridges were built, roads were largely completed, etc. I decided to switch to offline mode and had a great experience building everything myself. I just started Death Stranding 2 and have opted to stay offline once again. I can only assume this goes against the way Kojima intended these games to be played, but with that said, choosing where to play structures, gathering the materials for them, etc., are all parts of the phenomenal and underrated gameplay mechanics that these games have to offer. I'm wondering how you guys feel about this. Do you agree? Disagree? Am I spitting on Kojima's vision here? Thanks for reading and thanks for all the great content. I'm trying to... I wanted to read this letter because I'm trying to remember back to when Death Stranding first came out and we first played it. And we played it immediately when it came out, I remember. And I went and looked. We did I beat it in like late November. So maybe that's like maybe a few weeks after it came out. And that was like when I was moving around and I was like a bad time in my life. But I was dedicated to beating it. And like I said earlier, I played it kind of incompletely. But I feel like I don't remember it being as populated with other people's shit as it is in Director's Cut. And I don't know if that just was the way it naturally became in the original too, as more people played it and ingested the game and then spit their own shit into the universe. But I feel like a lot of my enjoyment of Death Stranding Director's Cut came from not having to do all that shit, but rather focusing only on my thing, which was the roads. And watching the roads kind of get constructed by others, phantom builders as well. I don't know how much of it's algorithmic and how much of it's real. I don't really know. But like, other than when the game forces you to like build a power station, build a generator, build a bridge, it's like, otherwise I didn't build anything and just used other people's shit. And I feel like I would have been really frustrated if I had to play it offline. So I would imagine it's a radically different game if you're playing it offline. And that's like hardcore mode in Fallout or something.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm going to be responsible for building everything and I'm going to be responsible for maintaining everything. That's a lot, dude. I mean, that's like hundreds of hours, I would imagine, to do all that. All the timefall shelters, the random generators that come in the clutch, the fucking hidden rooms that you like delve into when you're in the middle of nowhere and you need to rest. I don't know. It seems like a lot to me. Are either of you guys playing? Did either of you play Death Stranding 1 or 2 offline?
No, definitely not.
No.
I feel like in Death Stranding 2 or Death Stranding 1, when I played it recently, a lot of stuff was built, like a decent amount of roads, but certainly not all the roads. And that's also been my experience in Death Stranding 2, that some of the roads are getting built on their own, but there is a lot of roads for me to build. And that's what I've been trying to figure out, is that I'm getting a shit ton of likes from the roads I've built.
I am too.
And my question is, are other people just not building the roads? Is there a small minority that are doing the service? Or is it the way the game is structured that it will let some of the roads be built by other players for you, but not all of them? Because I'm certainly reaping the rewards of building these roads in terms of likes. So I'm curious about how the game balances that.
Yeah, like I haven't really looked into it too deeply, and I'm sure it's well understood if you read about it, but you have like your social connections. I don't know how it is in Death Stranding 2, but like in the first one, you have your social connections, and then the more you do in the game, the more social connections you can make. And so I wonder if it is just a random assortment of, even in the credits, it says like, here are all the people you played with. Very much like Journey. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Are these people that like, is it just a randomized thing where we're connected now? Because you can even go through each person's thing, and like some of these people haven't been online in years, like, or haven't logged into the game in years. And their stuff's still appearing in my world. So it's interesting. Like all of these instances are kept and then I guess put over each other in this very mystical way that I don't quite readily understand.
Right.
And then it all starts decaying in your world, which sucks. Because it's like, then you start getting messages and it's like, I didn't even build that fucking thing. I don't care.
Mhm.
Your timefall shelter near, Central Knot City is decaying or whatever. I'm really, I'm like, all right, no, it's not mine. So, all right. Anything else here to, the Wubs wrote in before I kick it over to you and says, hello, LS Imps. Oh, I see. LS Imps. That's good. Colin, are you in danger of burnout by the time you play Death Stranding 2? I don't think so. I'm like really enjoying it. I'm different though than a lot of people. I could see people being
Different.
yeah, different. I'm differently abled.
Yes.
I can see a lot of people being turned off and put off by playing these games back to back. And Micah even suggested to me, she's like, why don't you just play like Doom or something for like a few days? Because I haven't played the Dark Ages yet. And then move into Death Stranding 2. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. But I feel like I'm feeling good. I'm enjoying. I'm also thinking that here's the problem. I mean, you guys can tell me what you think. I'm like ready to go into Death Stranding 2. And I'm sticking with Death Stranding because I want to clean up the Platinum Trophy. I wonder if I should just go on to the second game, but as I understand, the second game changes some fundamental controls. In other words, like I know how to play this game right now. And I really feel like I should just put my shoulder into it and get it over with. And then just move on.
Yeah.
It's
you should
going
definitely,
yeah.
You should definitely do that.
So that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, go on.
Well, because I played like a little bit of Death Stranding Director's Cut before going into Death Stranding 2, assuming that not much would have changed in the way of controls just to kind of get acquainted with it. So I didn't fumble at the beginning of Death Stranding or at the beginning of Death Stranding 2 when I got it. And there's enough there that is actually quite different. Menu-wise, some buttons are different. I can't remember off the top of my head which button is like...
I heard they reversed like even the buttons of like getting in and out of vehicles and stuff, like just weird things like that are just muscle memory that are going to...
Yeah, so I would honestly just say, just like if you're that deep into Death Stranding Director's Cut, just finish it. Just do what you got to do, because it's going to be a pain in the ass going back and reacquainting yourself with the controls just for like a brief closing period with the first game after finishing the second one. So yeah, I would just put your shoulder into it. Just finish it up.
Yeah, I think I will. Like what's remaining for me is you have to do the Legend of Legends deliveries, which are only on hard or above, which is why I've been playing the game on hard. And I beat the whole game on hard. I did drop the difficulty in 2 boss fights that were that were annoying me because they were like 3 or 4 parts. And if you died in like the third part, you'd have to go I'm like, I'm not fucking doing this. Like, this is so fucking annoying. Specifically with, it's not a spoiler. I don't think it's specifically with Cliff. Like a couple of those fights where I'm like, this is so fucking annoying. It's not hard. It's just like the fights with the huge enemies, like the kaiju style enemies, were so much easier in hard than these other ones. Anyway, so what I have to do is I have to do the 80 Legends of Legends deliveries, and you have to do 20 in each category. So it's like 20 by volume, 20 miscellaneous, 20 by time, whatever. And I'm slowly chipping away at those. And I'm probably like halfway through that or whatever. And then I have to find the data chips, which are like the collectibles that I didn't find, which I didn't find probably 40 of them or something. So that's going to probably take like a couple of days for me to do. I have to find like a map and figure that out. And then once that's done, everything else that I have to do is just building and upgrading things. And I have so many supplies at all of the different Knot cities and distribution centers that I think I'll be okay. It's just going to take like time, and I'm going to need like a checklist of everything I have to do. The one thing that I read on PSN profiles, and I just learned this recently, which I didn't know, and this sucks, but I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to try. I think I'll be able to do it. Is that they added races to the game. And the races don't have to be beaten per se, except that there's a trophy for constructing all of the blueprints, and you earn 2 blueprints by beating certain races. And those aren't in the original one, but are in the new one. And I was like, damn, that fucking sucks. But because the races are supposed. The vehicle control is really bad in the game. I think by design. So I got to figure that out, but I think I can do it. Like I was really intimidated by the Mafia Definitive Edition race, and that was really tough. But that I did that, and I don't think that hopefully this will not be that hard. So yeah, I hope by the. I don't want to be too ambitious, but by the end of the weekend, maybe midweek, I'll be on to Death Stranding 2 and have put this game away. But I've really, really enjoyed my time with it. So shout out to Death Stranding Director's Cut. If you own the original Death Stranding digitally, it's a $10 upgrade and it's well worth it. And you can even physically. Physically too?
If you have it physically, you can pop the disc in and then get the $10 upgrade.
Oh, interesting. I wonder what stops people. I didn't know that they did that because you could just share your disc with people, right?
Yeah. I mean, they would each have to buy the $10 upgrade, but
right. But they wouldn't have to buy. Yeah. So I'm surprised by that because that's so
you still need that disc to pop in.
Oh, I see.
Every time to run the director's cut upgrade.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So yeah, shout out to that. Highly recommended. And it runs so much better, and it's such a joy to play. But again, I just think less combat, less confrontation, I think would have actually benefited the game, made it feel more sorrowful, more scary if you're truly defenseless. But that's neither here nor there. And maybe the second game gets more into that. All right, guys, let's leave it over to you. Chris, since you're playing 2 games, we'll go to Dustin first, and then he'll segue to you, and you can talk about Death Stranding and then get into what you're playing as well. All right, so Dustin, take it away.
Sure. Death Stranding 2, I think I'm on episode 9. My percentage on the PlayStation home menu itself, I think, is around 60. So I'm pretty balls deep in at this point, and I absolutely love it. This game fucking rules. It's everything you loved about Death Stranding 1, but better. I'm still at the point where I really don't I don't know what people are going to be mad about and what they aren't going to be mad about, even in terms of gameplay mechanics. So I guess some other broad strokes things that I've picked up on since last week is that this game is a lot more silly. It's a lot more Kojima. It feels more Kojima in a specific way, in that I think for Death Stranding 1, it still had some Kojima silliness in it, but it felt like it was reined in. I think it was Gene who maybe on Twitter or something said, this is Kojima Unleashed. And I'm surprised continually as I'm many, many hours into this game at this point, that there are new things being introduced that are either fucking awesome or hilarious. Like, I cannot believe he put this in the fucking game type stuff. I will not spoil those things. And there are many of them where I'm like, holy shit, I think there was like a lot of Kojima when he was making this game, and the team were like, I think there were points where he's like, oh, I think this is cool. Just randomly out and about. This is cool. I should put this in the game. You know, like Kojima-san, will that fit? I don't care. Put it in the game. And it works. At least for me, it works. I think there are some things in this game that people are going to see, be like, this is lame as hell. And that's fair.
It's funny, man, you say that, because I was thinking the same. I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but I haven't played the second game yet. But I was thinking a very similar thing as I was playing Death Stranding, specifically looking at like Die Hardman and Heartman and all these things where I'm like, this is so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And yet it's so awesome. Why is it so awesome? Everything he seems to do is awesome. Like, I don't think you can juice this guy up enough in a lot of ways. Like, there's something he has. It's called taste and style. Like, he has it impeccably.
There's also, which I think is like it's gonna sound insulting, but I don't think I don't mean it in that way. There's genuinely just a complete lack of shame as to what he finds funny or interesting or cool, that he just doesn't care if you get it or not. Like, he'll just throw it in. Like, Die Hardman is such a dumb name that, like, if most people would be like, yeah, maybe everybody's right. Maybe I should change it to, like, I don't know, fucking something completely unmemorable, you know? But he's just like, nah, it's Die Hardman.
Well,
you know what I mean? It's just like, there's like a commitment to like whatever it is. Like, it nothing seems to matter to him, which is like great.
It's awesome.
It's I can't even imagine being that confident in any idea as he is with the dumbest ideas that he has.
There's Die Hard Man, there's Dead Man,
Mhm.
there's Heart Man,
Mhm.
and in the new game, this was revealed very early on. There's Doll Man, there's Tar Man. There's just mans.
Mega Man.
All like
The
he's
Mega
just like,
Man
oh yeah,
villains.
this guy.
Some of
very
these
Mega
could be
Man.
Mega Man villains. Yeah. Well,
I don't know about
Hard Man is a Mega Man villain, not Die
Yeah.
Hard.
Die Hard in particular is the craziest one. Where I'm just like,
and the
that
Homo
is-
Demons, dude.
Oh yeah, the Homo Demons.
Homo Demons.
it's crazy. Like, yeah, I don't know. We're
Yeah, sorry, we interrupted you, Dustin. Go on, take it away.
Oh no, it's all good. But yeah, and Colin, you mentioned the pacing of Death Stranding 1 is kind of all over the place. This game is much better paced. There are times though where I want more of the story because I really want to know what happens. And it's a very even drip feed. Sometimes I get to the end of a story bit and I'm like, man, I just want a little bit more from it. But it's a good motivator for me to keep playing. The last thing I'll say, Colin, you mentioned about Death Stranding 1 and the combat not being very good. I agree. And I really didn't want to do almost any combat in Death Stranding 1 at all. In Death Stranding 2, I want to do combat as much as possible because it rules. When have done so many missions, like, man, I hope the next mission's a combat mission because they are so much fun. And that's where some of that Metal Gear Solid 5 comes in. And it's real good. When initially Death Stranding 2, when I first heard that it was going to have more combat in it, and when you think from the context of Death Stranding 1, it sounds like a bad thing. Like, I don't want, that part sucked of Death Stranding 1. Those complaints were heard and addressed thoroughly, in my opinion. And I love going into bases and fucking these guys up in all kinds of different ways. And they give you all kinds of different ways to do it, too. And you can also sneak around.
It's like Metal Gear 5.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, so good.
Yeah.
The stealth stuff is so... I'm eating well. I'm eating quite well as a stealth guy with this game. Although I do wish there were more of them. Like, more opportunities to do it.
Yeah. Well, so I think that's all I have to really say about it. I'm guessing I think I'm going to be done by next week of the main story. I am doing a lot of the suborders. I'm building a lot of the roads, but I'm not being full completionist before moving on because I think that would drive me nuts personally. So I am doing some side stuff. I do think that when I complete the story, though, I haven't even looked at what the platinum requires, but I think I'm going to be thorough later on.
Yeah, I mean, if it's anything like the first game, it's going to take forever, but it's very, in my opinion, quite rewarding.
Yeah.
At least so far. I don't know how I feel about the second game yet. Very excited to hear this and really interested to get into it. All right, Chris, you take it away. Do you have anything you want to add about Death Stranding 2? And then we'll get into the other game you're playing, Peak.
Yeah, I'm in much agreement, honestly. Like, I'm not as far as Dustin is because I've not had as much time to play this week, and also quite frankly, like there's a chapter in this game where I just got into a loop of I could do the next mission or I could go get materials to build this road. And then I would go build the road, and then I would be like, oh, I don't have enough materials. I got to go to this thing far away. And then, oh, I found a package. I got to deliver it. I just got into this crazy loop of just spending an inordinate amount of time in this one chapter where I'm like, I don't really need to be doing this, but I got a nice, system of transportation going, which is nice. And I feel it really rewards you for just like investing in the world. It's a really rewarding game to play in that way. But I'm enjoying it a great deal. I think Dustin said something about the pacing where it's like it's paced better. But you were talking about how in Death Stranding 1, some of the chapters go by like immediately, and some of them are long. That is still true in my experience. Like I remember I breezed through one chapter and I was like, oh shit, okay. Not that it's like badly paced, because I think every chapter is better paced, but you still have that weird kind of like, you don't really know what you're getting into chapter to chapter, which I think is actually kind of nice and cool. But yeah, not much more to say about Death Stranding 2 other than I think it's fantastic. I love it. It's got so much Metal Gear Solid 5 energy this time. I don't know. And again, I don't know how much of that was in the director's cut versus the original versus all new to this, but the sheer volume of tools available to you in your sandbox is so it's like a mouth-watering amount of stuff that you can just fuck around with. And it seems like everything has like a secondary and tertiary purpose, not like explicitly, not like a Doom weapon has an alt fire, but like there's always some weird creative way that you can use something that you didn't think about, or just a complete consequence of the equipment that you're using and the physics engine interacting with it and the AI interacting with that. And it's so dynamic and fun. And I love sneaking around and using the strand to, like, you know, take people out. It's mega satisfying. Yeah, I think it's a great game. It's wonderful. I'm enjoying my time with it a great deal. I'm taking my time. I'm taking probably too much time with it. I do feel like maybe I'm like falling a little bit behind, but like I just love spending time in this world.
There's no such thing about falling behind, in my opinion.
True. Yeah.
And then
I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess more from like how I'm used to playing. I don't normally care about this kind of thing, but I'm for some reason like so deeply invested in my highway system. It feels insane. I feel like a 50-year-old, like a middle-aged dad who's like has like a train set, like one of those model train sets in his basement or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, oh, it's almost perfect.
They were the original nerds, those guys.
Yeah. Yeah, those you talk about like autism didn't exist before recently. Like I'm not so sure about that.
Do you ever see I think it was C.S. Lewis or maybe some of those guys like used to play like these really complicated war games too, like in the turn of the century, like in the 1800s and the 1900s, that were like so nerdy that it was almost impossible to believe it was happening. And
right.
Yeah.
But that's all really I have to say about Death Stranding 2. There's a lot more that I want to talk about. There's even like really small gameplay mechanics and little changes that I noticed from game 1 to game 2 that I think would be interesting to talk about, but I thought was actually like a really pleasant surprise to encounter on my own. So I don't want to get too deep into it. I think it's a game that's worth kind of protecting, and we'll have plenty of time to get into that stuff when we get into spoiler talk, when we do our inevitable spoiler cast on it. But the other game I've been playing is this game called Peak. And so Peak is this is on Steam at the moment. It was, I think, as far as I am aware, it originated out of a game jam. And then they liked the idea so much that they spent like 6 months, 6 months making it or building it out further. But the idea is like it's a repo kind of game, Lethal Company kind of game, but it centers around climbing this mountain. And you play as these cute little guys. You can customize your faces. It's proximity chat. So like when you talk, your character's mouth moves. And if you get further away, it trails off. If you're in a cave, it echoes. It's really cool. And the whole premise is you just have to climb the mountain and reach various peaks. And, you get various items like ropes and harpoon guns, but you only have a limited carry capacity. And, and if people are climbing and they don't have enough stamina, and you're at the top, you can pull them up. It's a fun kind of little cooperative sandbox game that I've been having quite a bit of fun with. I like it.
I'm watching it now.
It's fun. It's I like it a little bit more than Repo, although I think Repo is going for a very different vibe. Obviously, there's something. I'll say I laughed the hardest I've laughed this year at a game playing this game, because seeing somebody like not have enough stamina to reach the top of this thing and then falling and screaming and then seeing them tumble and hearing their voice trail away is hysterical. And I highly recommend it. It's like cheap. I think it's like I don't remember what I paid for it.
$7.99.
It's very worth it for $7. I think it's like a very fun game to play with your friends. It's silly. It's very not serious. It's not like so deep that it becomes like a hassle to kind of figure out, but it's not so shallow that it becomes mindless. There's a bunch of different hazards and little things to learn about, what can harm you. Like certain plants will poison you. There's energy drinks where if you drink it, you'll get a boost of stamina, but like you'll get drowsy at the end of it. And sometimes you get too tired and you risk like passing out and like tumbling over, and so it's fun. It's a fun little physics climbing game that I recommend. I think it would do really well on console too. Like I hope at some point it comes out. Lord knows there's I don't know. I would certainly prefer it to Pig Escape 2 on the PlayStation Store right now. You can go check that out if you want.
Please do.
Are you familiar, by the way? This is a complete aside.
Yeah, please.
But yeah, highly recommend Peak. It's great. But
it does look really nice.
Are you familiar with these Italian brain rot games that have been showing up on the PlayStation Store?
I don't know.
So I was looking at, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a game dev, and I was just talking about how much garbage there is in the PlayStation Store, as we often talk about on the show. And I was just going through like some of the more recent releases, obviously by upload date, not by best selling. And I noticed that there was this fucking character showing up on various thumbnails or various covers for a game. And it's this like stick character. It's like this wooden, it's almost like a cinnamon stick with a face, and he's holding another stick. And he's on the cover of like so many of these games. And I was like looking at it, I was like, what the fuck is this? Is this like a royalty-free character that like people can just like use? And it turns out that there's this entire like cinematic universe of like AI generated Italian brain rot meme characters that people have just been like making video games about. So the one that I can, so I'll spell it out in the chat for you, but it's Tung Sahur is one, which is insane, by the way. But like, here it is. I put it in the chat so you could like copy paste it. This character is in so many.
Oh, this guy. I've seen this guy.
Bro,
this man. Who is he?
This man. Who is this man?
Who is this man?
This gentleman.
He's in so many of these games. And it's like, obviously it's the shovelware that we keep seeing. Like the 99 cent.
Like tongue sore. What is this?
I'm sorry to have to be the person to let you know about this, but I was just, this one character was on so many covers and by so many different developers. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I felt like I was going crazy by noticing this. And I was like, is anybody else seeing this? But there's a shit ton of these on the PlayStation Store now.
Yeah,
like
I'm looking
these
at
like
all.
Italian brain rot games.
Jesus, this is a really horrifying character. There's something really unsettling about this character.
Oh, everything about it from stem to stern, it's unsettling.
Yeah, it's very strange.
You know,
he's like he's like a log with a baseball bat.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I searched Tung Sahur in the store, and it's just, there's 2 whole pages of this shit.
Oh my god, there's 2 pages. I only saw like 6. I only saw 6 like games, but like the fact that there's that many is not surprising, but also deeply upsetting.
And there's 2 announced that aren't even out yet.
Oh, great.
Well, 3 announced. One of them's in VR.
Great. What's a wonderful, wonderful era we're living in.
Now, what about this this shark that has shoes on? He's associated with this man.
I've seen that character. This is what I'm saying. This is an entire cinematic universe. I think that's Tralalero Tralala.
Yeah, you're right.
That's a Kojima character right there.
Yeah, Tralalero Tralala is definitely like. These are actually like all Metal Gear Solid, like a cast of Metal Gear Solid villains.
Yeah, it's Tung Sahur. But dude, like
it all makes sense.
Yeah, but there's it's, I don't know. I stumbled across this rabbit hole recently, and I thought I'd share it with you because I couldn't suffer from this by myself. But yeah, if anybody's curious about these brain rot games, go check them out. They're
interesting.
Undoubtedly garbage. There's even one that I was reading the description of, and it's like this really long, like winded, like AI generated paragraph, and at the end it said, "This is not a game." Like in the description of it.
Tralala, tralalero, tralala. That's fucking psychotic.
This
is all like, I'm like,
but all is this. I bring this up to say, ultimately, that like. Peak should definitely be on the store if this bullshit is allowed. You know,
fair enough.
Because Peak is good. So, yeah, I don't know.
All right. That's everything. I have one last inquiry here I thought I'd ask because I was curious about this too. Gababoo3 wrote in and said, one single greeting you can divide among the three of you. My question is for Dustin. Where are you in your Ace Attorney journey? You briefly discussed the first games and mentioned that you might play the entire series without necessarily talking about it on the podcast. I hereby declare you guilty of non-transparency and sentence you to a weekly status update on your trials and tribulations. In the legal profession. I will sit down on my bench and listen. Thank you for making me unexpectedly laugh while I'm in public in front of strangers. Are you continuing?
I will continue at some point, but I was at a clean break with that first game being done. So at some point, I'll go back to it, but not right now. So I will be transparent about that. And when I do play the next one, I'll let you, the audience, I'll let you know. But I guess until then, am I guilty?
I don't know. Yeah,
guilty of something.
The judge, the bald judge with the beard, it's the you're guilty, and you will be playing 20 hours of Tung Sahur Supermarket Simulator.
Well,
all right.
Well,
let's end the show as we always do with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on patreon.com/lastdaymedia. Remember, you can support us on patreon.com/lastdaymedia for early ad-free access to everything we do here. We appreciate you and couldn't do it without you. We would simply go out of business without your support on Patreon. So thank you so much for that. We typically have inquiries, guys, as you know, that touch on a bunch of things we didn't talk about throughout the show, and this is true here. However, many people, we had about 200 submissions this week, and I would say 50 to 60 at least were about the Xbox layoffs and the studio closures and the game cancellations, or studio closure and game cancellations. So I felt like it would be a little disingenuous to ignore that. I was trying to think about how I wanted to do it, because I guess you could make the argument, and I think it's actually very easy to make the argument, and it might indeed be true, that as Sony's biggest publisher now, these happenings are important to PlayStation's audience. However, the Dukes covered it up front. Felt like it would have been a little redundant to do that. So instead I put it out back here. And so I think 3 or 4 of the inquiries have to do with it either directly or tangentially. And so just wanted to kind of frame that for everyone. Big Boss BE starts us off and says, hey, CDC, I've been following your discussions closely, and I wanted to share some thoughts on the recent Xbox news and how it ties into what Colin has been saying for years. At this point, it's almost surreal watching the unraveling of Xbox under Phil Spencer's watch. The grand vision of buying Bethesda, Activision, and dozens of other studios promised a new golden age for gaming, yet here we are with multiple studio closures, canceled projects like Everwild and Perfect Dark, and thousands of layoffs. Colin called this years ago. You saw that Microsoft's massive acquisitions weren't about nurturing creativity, but about controlling output for Game Pass. And Game Pass, it's a double-edged sword. While popular among gamers, it's not a sustainable business model. It's cheap for consumers, but expensive and restrictive for developers. What's more baffling is how the top brass at Xbox remains firmly in place despite this ongoing fallout. Phil Spencer and Matt Booty have overseen some of the worst management decisions in recent gaming history, yet there's no shakeup at the top. Contrast that with Sony, where leadership changes have happened and where, despite missteps like their own struggles with live service games, studios have stayed mostly intact and the focus remains on long-term quality. Sony's recent moves, holding off on price hikes, focusing on strong single-player exclusives, show a company that's learning from its mistakes and adapting organically rather than trying to force dominance through the sheer spending power. It's ironic that the company once written off as lagging is now outlasting the one that tried to buy the entire industry. Colin wasn't just skeptical for the sake of it, he was pragmatic, and with Xbox bleeding from the inside, the proof is painfully clear. Thanks for keeping the conversation real and insightful. Your podcast remains one of the most consistent and genuine voices in gaming discourse. Thank you. He touches on a few things here. I guess we should frame everything first in case you're unaware, although I think most people that were listening to this would be plenty aware of this by now, is that Microsoft had massive layoffs of, I think, 9,000 or 10,000 people. Thousands of them came from Xbox, Bethesda, and Activision. And as you had noted, Big Boss, in your inquiry, this saw some game cancellations. So Perfect Dark got canceled and the Initiative shut down, which is a Santa Monica-based studio that never put out a game. I saw Turn 10 lost more than half of its staff, which seems unimaginable. Like, I don't even understand that. I thought Forza Motorsport was huge. I guess I'm just disconnected from the reality of what's going on with their studios there. Everwild always seemed like it was in trouble, but they just reiterated earlier this year that they were still working on it and that it was coming along. So that was surprising to see. And I think Rare actually lost one of its founding members that was there since 1990, who was the original designer, who I think was the director of Everwild, who was the designer of Donkey Kong Country. So that's how long he was at that game. He designed a Super Nintendo game in the early 90s. Really amazing stuff. And he was there the entire time. So he's out. And yeah, I think there were layoffs at Compulsion, layoffs. They canceled MMO at ZeniMax Online Studios. I saw some contracts were canceled. It seems like that game Contraband that was being made by Avalanche is never going to come out. Romero Games apparently shuttered their studio because they lost their contract with Microsoft. So there's a lot of fallout over this. But what I wanted to begin the conversation, and what I wanted to focus on from this particular inquiry, is one thing, just as a preface, which is Sony's not in great shape, and I don't think we should PlayStation is doing very well, but they made a lot of bad mistakes, and they made a lot of bad mistakes that are going to haunt them for a long time. You can't understate that or kind of sweep that under the rug. They're very lucky that things are going the way that they're going right now. I don't think it has much to do with them. I think it has a lot to do with just market forces, and they stumbled into this situation because all of their games aren't coming to fruition, at least in the multiplayer realm. So I appreciate what you're saying about Sony, but I don't want to blow smoke up their ass and bolster them too much. I think they're incredibly fortunate. Like specifically what happened to Xbox One with PS4 to give them that momentum to survive and thrive during a moment when they are losing a lot of money on bad bets. So just wanted to throw that out there. But the big thing that I wanted to say is, I don't understand how the leadership still works there. And I don't think that it couldn't be any more obvious, as I've said for a long time now, that these people have no power. Because Gene, I don't know if you saw Gene Park, Washington Post, who does our Nintendo show Punching Up, and a friend of our show, he was circulating, I think, a Eurogamer article from February where Phil Spencer was talking about Everwild and how great it was coming along and all of the rest. And then 5 months later, it's canceled. This MMO, the more I read about it from ZeniMax Online Studios, that's been in development apparently for years and had hundreds of people working on it, was apparently really, really good. And they just pulled the plug on it. The Initiative, remember Chris and I made fun of it at the time because they were calling it the Quadruple A Studio. And I'm still fairly convinced that was a typo. But it's hysterical that they called it a Quadruple A Studio, and I'll never forget that. And how much money did they waste on it? They didn't do anything. They did nothing for 7 years. And if I'm being fair, maybe you have to be really directional in the decision and who loses their job. And maybe you don't want to go after Phil, who I really believe, again, is a figurehead right now. But you look at Xbox's numbers, and they did buy a lot of things and stuff, but the numbers are good and they're making money. But you certainly have to look at Matt Booty, right? What does this guy do? For people that don't know, Matt Booty is apparently what is the equivalent, of what Shuhei Yoshida used to be, or what Herman Holst was, where it's like you're in charge of all of our first party studios and like the output of the first party. And it's like, damn, dude, pretty bleak shit. Yeah. Because I think even the games they're getting to market by and large are not that special, whether it's Avowed or whatever. It's just unimpressive. It's just Indiana Jones. I didn't think it was that great. I just can't believe no one pays the price. And then I'm not one of these people. I think it's really naive to say, and it just is what it is. I mean, because it's a symbolic thing. When a CEO or executives take pay cuts, it's symbolic, and maybe they should be doing that. But it's not going to save anyone's jobs. You're not talking even about enough money to be able to save jobs. So when people always point out like Iwata taking a 50% pay cut during the Wii U era, it's like that was a symbolic thing. What would that have saved? Like 10 people's jobs for a year or something? It's a bigger systemic issue, and the people that should be paying the price don't seem to be paying the price. The games industry has grown too large from a personnel perspective, and it needs to right size, and it's going to continue to right size. And I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox got smaller than this even. Maybe much smaller than this between Activision, Bethesda, and Xbox as they streamline things. But I just can't seriously look at someone like Matt Booty and be like, whoa. I mean, Jaffe's been banging that drum for years. Like, what is going on with this dude? What does he have on these guys or something? Like, I don't know. It's just so weird. So, Chris, let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on the recent situation with Microsoft? And you can take it really in any direction you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's embarrassing. I think it's ridiculous that just the sheer the sheer scope of the failure it just feels almost impossible to do without trying to do it on purpose. Like it's I was tweeting the other day about just like it really is wild to imagine just the situation that Xbox used to be in versus where they are now. It really is kind of next level wild, because while we have examples of entities going, third party or else like Sega or whatever, I don't like the 360 really was an insane win. Even in spite of like a 50% plus failure rate, that I think skyrocketed to like 80, 90% at a certain point. The 360 was so beloved and was so good that people stuck with it even after that. And then they squandered all of this like inherent goodwill and this inherent fandom like almost overnight with that Xbox One reveal, and they just never came back. And every decision since then seems to have just been a double down on just fucking up entirely, like in ways that feel so avoidable. Because the initiative going away and Perfect Dark particularly is a rough one, because that to me was, quite frankly, the only thing that I've seen out of them that looked to be genuinely something special in some way. And not to say like I've seen a lot of people be like that gameplay was faked. It's like I have no idea if it was fake or not. I don't know. But even if it was, like the premise of them going like putting AAA resources into a Perfect Dark immersive sim, like the idea that was the fact that was the idea on the face of it was like so interesting and so cool, and so like I was so on board for that. And so for that to go away, it's just like, what do you have now? Fable, which is still a no-show. Like a 10% chance that the next Halo game might not suck. Like, what is going on over there? Like, what even is there to look forward to, really, at a certain point? Like Gears E-Day? I don't know how confident I am in that now. Like what? Like, it just seems like a sinking ship. And I'm with you, where it's just like I'm truly bewildered that the people who have been steering this ship are still there after all this time, because they've been there a while. It's not like new, because how long ago did Phantom Dust vanish?
Oh my God, that's
7
years ago probably, or something at this point, right? I mean,
it's the beginning. It was like, and so like this, what I'm saying is like, this isn't just like a rant, like, oh, this is a problem from Microsoft in the last like 2 years, or like, oh, this is like an Activision acquisition problem. It's like, no, they've not been able to run their first party effectively in a very, very, very long time. And I don't get how you fuck up that badly for so long. I don't get it, straight up.
Yeah, the game was canceled by 2015, I guess.
Yeah, and then Scalebound was another one.
Yeah, Scalebound. They don't. Sony's obviously really struggling getting games out too, so this is a kind of a universal thing, although it's for different reasons. I think, like, I just don't think these guys really know what to do entirely, and it's not personal. You don't want to like throw around people's jobs, even executives that make millions of dollars. Like it's just like, damn, dude, Matt Booty is not the man for the job. Just isn't clearly the man for the job. And I just wonder if Microsoft is very comfortable keeping these guys installed as figureheads. Like, why bring new people in? And you could also imagine that maybe they're happy with them in some sense, but I don't understand how. Dustin, what are your thoughts?
I think the thing that keeps coming back to me is, and you mentioned, Colin, that I wonder how much control they still have after all of these huge purchases. And a lot of people have been pointing out, particularly, I think it was Phil Spencer on Xbox Era, their podcast. It was either earlier this year or late last year, talking about Everwild and saying like, it's coming along great. We're really excited, stuff like that. I think he may have, maybe I'm misquoting, but said that they like the fact that they can give them the time and space to work on it. And I think that at that time, he probably meant that. But I think now the expectations are very different when you spend that much money on studios. And of course, across the industry, things have been bloated. And I think that he got a phone call or knock on the door, whatever. It's like, yeah, you got to make cuts. Like, and you need to look at these teams that you've given them so much rope and so much time, and they need to deliver. And if they're not going too soon, they're done. They're out. So I guess you could still blame that on them specifically, that it's like, there's always, I feel like there's been this feeling where, or at least they've touted that it's like, we want to give our developers time. I think it was maybe it was on when I was editing Defining Duke, or maybe it was just comments I saw on Twitter that Phil Spencer has like the cool uncle vibe. It's like, oh, I'm going to let you guys, we want to give creatives as much time as they need in order to do something. But now the rubber's hitting the road, and these games, they need to ship games. And some of these teams just aren't doing that. Is that those teams' fault? Is it because they've been falsely given more time than they actually have? Probably somewhere in the middle. And it is funny too, not to just repeat things that were said on Duke, but really interesting about the initiative. First of all, it's ironic that the team is called The Initiative. And this was a team that Microsoft was putting together themselves in order to make the quadruple A game. Mm-hmm. And could not deliver. In fact, it seemed like that studio was in absolute chaos the entire time, to the point where they needed Crystal Dynamics to come in and work on the game. And now just completely shut down. And this comes back to a lot of what you've said, Colin, and that's just that Microsoft is not a creative company. There are creatives that work in it, and their most successful teams are ones that they've bought, and that's fine. I was looking because I was trying to remember the Coalition. I think that's a team that they formed.
Yeah, they formed a coalition to specifically to work on Gears after
they used to be called Zipline Studios. It's weird in Wikipedia. It says formerly Zipline Studios, Microsoft Game Studios Vancouver, and Black Tusk Studios.
Black Tusk, right? So it's not that they've never formed a successful team, but they formed Turn 10 as well. I mean, that was so it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's just that typically that's not where they're finding their success. And the reality with Microsoft, in my opinion, is they made bets that I think some of the bets were really stupid. Like, I do think the Activision deal ultimately is what blew this all up, and they should have never done it. Like, it was not worth it for what it did to their ecosystem and like the amount of pressure it put on them. It's so obvious that was just like, they went too far. They should have bought, like, not that things for sale, but something the size of like Sega or something was probably about the most that they could probably get away with before it really started to implode. And the pressure started to implode on them. But it's not that they've been wrong to make the bets that they've made for the most part. It's that we didn't have, and they didn't either have all the data to know how these things would work out. And it didn't work. And it wasn't made any better by the fact that they didn't perform well in making it work. So what I mean by that is, we talk about Game Pass all the time, and I think that was the right move. And it would be interesting to know how it would have gone if they had the games ready quicker, if they were more aggressive in getting it going, if they weren't so complacent for so long to the point where it didn't really matter anymore. Would they have still met this saturation point of the mid 30 millions or whatever, even with Call of Duty? Maybe. But you could also imagine, it's what we were saying earlier about having more players in the beginning on multiplayer, right? If you draw more people quickly, then the baseline grows and you grow quicker, or at least potentially grow quicker. And so it's not that they were wrong to make the bet. It's that they didn't execute well on it from multiple different perspectives. And the purchases that they made, I think were, and I articulated this many times, like when those emails leaked from the FTC hearing, where it's like they wanted to buy anyone. Like, they had no directional interest. It wasn't like, these are the 8 studios that we really think will make sense for this, and this. It's like, we want everything. We want Nintendo, we want Sega, we want Warner, we want Square Enix, we want Tecmo Koei. Like, any company you can fucking think of was in that list. I remember there were studios like Level 5. It's like, what? Like, what does that do for you? And I think that they learned that in some way with some of their purchases. I was very critical of them buying Compulsion from the beginning. I was very critical of them buying Ninja Theory. It could be easily argued that neither of the studios have panned out at all for Microsoft. They've made, the Ninja Theory has made good games, and in the Hellblade games, one of them before and one of them after the acquisition, but was the juice worth the squeeze, as the saying goes. And so I don't begrudge Phil Spencer and his company for failing in certain ways, in ways that I think made sense to test the market. It's just that you can't be the person placing the bets anymore. And I just don't get it. So, I mean, that's a big thing for me. And I feel bad for people that got caught in these situations. It's horrible. And that will move us on to the next inquiry. Dwindle wrote in and said, Coderus, that's our three names put together.
Oh.
Am I wrong to not care about or perhaps even tacitly be in support of the layoffs? The industry has been massively bloated over the last 10 years. Why are 2,000 people even working at King, a mobile game house, in the first place? Why are studios given half a decade to produce nothing? I think it's time to shake the tree even more, trim the fat. I couldn't care less, and he said could, and then NT in the parentheses. I appreciate that. Care less about people who are doing nothing but blasting labor costs to the moon. If these studios don't want to lose entirely to Chinese or Eastern European development teams, they need to be nimble, and that's to say nothing about the impending apocalypse that's sure to hit sooner rather than later. Are you wrong to support the layoffs? I mean, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. And I say the same thing in the sense that the industry has to right size. The industry is too bloated. There are too few dollars and too few game hours chasing too many games, being funded by too many investment dollars, and there's no way to make that stuff square. So this is nowhere near the bottom, and Sony will probably lay more people off. Xbox will lay more people off. All of these studios are going to lay people off, and some people want to blame it on AI. I know a big thing with Microsoft, especially, is AI, because they have a Copilot or whatever. And I don't know if you saw the reporting that like they're basically making Copilot kind of like a mandatory part of everyone's workflow. Like it's important to incorporate all of these different tools and these scaling tools and all of the rest. And I'm sure that's something to do with it. But it's just that Microsoft learned another lesson that was really unknowable until it happened. Although you could have strategized around it, and we saw it in a great way with Embracer to an even greater degree, is that there is such a thing as too big. And it's not too big money-wise. It's too big resource spending-wise, production-wise. You do not need to make this much stuff. It doesn't make any sense. You could compile the IP and put it in a vault and figure it out later, but all the studios and the heads and these teams making things that all ultimately compete with one another, Embracer met that in a major way, and Microsoft's going to make that reach that in a major way as well. They should be getting a game a quarter out or so from their studios. But even then, that would mean teams were working on like 6-year cycles or something. It's just, so do I think you're wrong to be tacitly in support of the layoffs? Yeah, in the sense you don't want anyone to lose their jobs, but this isn't an altruistic exercise. It's to be, if the money's not going to be made, if you're not making money for the company, even if the company's wildly profitable, they don't want you unless you're in some way producing as a loss leader. But anyway, Dustin, what are your thoughts on this? The industry, do you believe the industry is bloated? And do you believe more layoffs are undoubtedly coming because of the way people spend their money now and the way that people, maybe more importantly, spend their time?
Yeah. The industry is definitely bloated. I mean, we've seen insane layoffs. And as you said, we will continue to see them. I think that the part that's frustrating or annoying or what feels wrong is giving the leadership behind the teams that are setting up a situation where people are dedicating and pouring their lives into products that are just going to be canceled. I'm not saying there's no blame on the studios, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like Phil was talking about how Everwild looks great and we want to give them time. And so was Rare under the impression that that's what was going on? And then suddenly it's a switcheroo where it's like, well, actually, we gave you too much time and there's no game yet, so you're out. You know, it comes back to that management aspect. So I understand, yeah. I understand the industry correcting itself. It's just the fact that a lot of it's bloated because of poor decisions. And so literally thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are the ones that suffer the true consequence because of that.
It's a bummer. What do you think, Chris, about keeping costs in check? And certainly there are a lot of dominant studios now coming out of Europe and Eastern Europe and China, South Korea, but there are obviously very nimble and productive American studios too. But this is going to become a bigger situation about the cost of making games and the difference of paying someone in Poland $30,000 and someone in Washington $120,000.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always I've felt that budgets for video games are fucking way too high. I felt that for a while. I think I don't know. I think there's just like a core frustration that I have when decisions are made that result in thousands of people losing their jobs, and the people on the hook of the consequences of those decisions are never the people making them. It infuriates me to no end that the people who actually need their jobs don't get them, and the people who only do their jobs basically as a courtesy to just kind of keep busy get to keep them. It's truly insane. Like Matt Booty, if he lost his job today, would be completely fine. It would be so much finer than any one of us could ever hope to be. And just the sheer lack of humanity in it. Like, I get that there are business realities. I get it. But like, it's, I think you should go down with the ship, quite frankly. I think you should step the fuck out of there. Like, I know there's like, oh, we don't want to play with people's jobs, but quite frankly, like, jobs are not life or death for these people, and for a lot of people, they are. Like, I know people personally who are still like they're. I have friends who were laid off from Sega. I have friends who were laid off from elsewhere, and they're still like floundering. They're still like they've been completely fucking uprooted, and so my sympathy for like a Matt Booty is like damn near negative. So. Yeah, I don't know.
Especially because he's clearly not good at his job. He's not good at his job. You can make an argument for Phil Spencer based on the money they're making and some of the moves being questionable, but the dude in charge of the teams is not good at his job.
And that's ultimately what I'm saying, to be more clear. I'm feeling like a little heated, honestly, but like, because it's personal to me. I know a lot of people affected by this shit. So I don't know. I think there is a lot of bloat. I think there was a lot of irresponsibility in deciding to grow the industry the way that they decided to grow during the pandemic. And maybe we're still right-sizing, maybe we're not. I'm sure AI plays into this, because if they can get work out of a computer for free, what is the incentive to pay for it? I know a lot of QA in certain sectors of the industry are being handed over to AI, which, by the way, is like, that's the entryway into the industry. So that's a fucking terrible idea. But, there's a lot of factors going into this and I think it's equal parts greed, equal parts decision, like poor decision making. But I think in the context of commentary, I think there's just too many kid gloves played with the people ultimately making the decisions that cost this money and cost these jobs and lives in a lot of cases. So. No, that's really all I have to say. I agree with a lot of what you guys said, but
yeah, I think
it's frustrating.
I think that people are often too reductive in these conversations about, well, the company makes this much profit and they should just keep all these people employed because they make this much profit. And I'm like, that's really not the way it works. Unfortunately, I understand that in sentiment, but that's just not a realistic capitalistic exercise for a publicly traded company that has to constantly feed, unfortunately, its investors. And so if you have 1,000 people that are productive but not making you money, and you try to go to the investors and you're like, we want to keep them, they're good people and we don't want to uproot their lives, and they cost us this and they're making us this, and obviously it doesn't all equal out, but who cares? And they're like, we have all this money, and they're like, well, we don't give a fuck. And that's just the unfortunate, harsh reality, which is, and this becomes more and more mechanical the bigger the companies get, which is why I'm inherently against, one of the many reasons that I'm inherently against M&A. You have to understand a lot of this happened not to the Microsoft more widely, but to the Xbox family because of their expansion. And the idea that everyone was going to be better off under the that protective Microsoft umbrella was bullshit. And it's not working out the way that they thought it was going to work out. I hope that this is the end of the layoffs, but it won't be. And it's why I think that, I don't know. I see my own brother struggling with it. I mean, he is an animator. Obviously, he only worked on a couple of games, but obviously he was mostly working in TV shows. But he basically took a marketing job, like kind of outside of the industry, because he just couldn't take the volatility anymore. And this is something that's going to become more and more common in the creative fields. And I feel bad for people that are not only in the industry, in places that are a little more, like if you were at Larian or something, you're going to be fine. Or if you're at Valve or something, you're going to be fine. But most people are not in those positions. And I feel especially bad for people that want to get in. How are you a young student or a young person, an artist or a programmer or something, looking at all this stuff and having any hope that you can get in? Why would you even bother? So I think this will have long-term ramifications. Another related inquiry comes from Slit Liquor, which I don't like that name. It says, "Hi, CDC. So another studio closure was Microsoft's initiative, which is based in one of the most expensive cities in the world to live. I realize it is not only based on this reason, and I imagine a company would look at the cost of personnel and upkeep of buildings and rent in their decision. Yes, there is significant talent in Santa Monica, but if I owned a developer, I would set up shop in a city like Pittsburgh. The pay would be appropriate for the city where the cost of living is significantly lower, and I would give incentives to developers for signing on. For example, a Santa Monica employee would not work for less than $200,000, my guess, but probably more. But in Pittsburgh, you could offer $100,000, and after a year of work, give the employees $50,000 in housing bonuses, which will go a long way towards a house. Am I making any sense? I mean, you are, but it's simply not that easy for it to work that way. First of all, no one is going to move and make half as much money as they used to make. Even if you're moving from fucking Alabama to New York City or something, that's not going to happen. But you have to understand that the most desirable people in any industry, but in games especially, have choices. And they are not going to choose, by and large, to go to Pittsburgh, unfortunately. Pittsburgh's a great city. It's what we always say about Bend in Oregon. Like, that studio has a lot of longtime employees because there's nowhere else for those people to work in that area. Their careers, unless they could work remotely, would be done. And you're asking people to take really big risks to go to somewhere where it would be a dead end. It's not only uprooting people's families and doing all these things, but it's about making them like, if someone did that, you would have to 5-year, 7-year fucking contract or something. It's like it's just not that easy. And that's not a good way to collect talent. I think the better thing to do, and I keep saying this, is remote work, remote one-off games. It's going to be the most cost effective, and it's going to be the easiest for people to get products out into the wild and test their success with as little overhead as possible. I don't understand when you see studios like CI Games is remote, Moon Studios is remote. Like, these guys put out real games, like good games. And I'm not saying it's the best way to make games, but it's what we always say about our podcast. Our podcast would be better in person, 100%. But at what cost? A lot of cost. I mean, people have to all be around each other. We have to go to each other. It's like, and then at what point does it become too inconvenient? I feel the same way here. So as much as that's a nice idea, and there are studios in random cities, there probably are game studios in Pittsburgh. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I bet you there are.
Shell Games.
What do they make?
They made they made the new Among Us VR, and they made the Spy I Expect You to Die, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And there's also Megacat in Pittsburgh, which they're like a smaller indie.
Megacat is the studio that I think is working on the God of War game.
That's the rumor.
So it's not to say that there are random studios in random places all around the world anyway, but I just think you're going to attract the local talent, but you're not necessarily going to attract the best talent. The best talent for game development in the United States is on the West Coast. And again, it was why Sony getting involved with Haven made some sense, because you want to lock down another place with great talent, Quebec, Montreal. You just got to go where the people are. But remote working would solve this entire problem. We'll leave it there, though. Matthew Urso wrote in and said, "Hello, hey, my fellow porters. With the news of the massive layoffs hitting Microsoft this week, I am left with one question. What the fuck is going on this generation? This generation, whether you're on Xbox or PlayStation, feels like it will be remembered as the generation of wasted potential. PS5 is a runaway success and has some great games, but Sony forced and bungled their entire live service initiative and has since shuttered teams and others we won't hear from until the PS6. Speaking of initiatives, Xbox, on the other hand, has gone full multi-platform, is selling way more games, and is putting out great games at a much steadier pace, but they continue to have massive layoffs and have now shut down the initiative, a studio they touted for years, making a so-called quadruple A game only to have nothing to show for it. It's incredibly frustrating, and I feel for the talented devs that have lost their jobs, but what can be done, if anything? More pressingly, why does this continue to happen? And will we ever see an end to it? Thanks. I'll hang my laundry and listen." Dustin, is this a lost generation? Will this be looked at as a generation where there's something a little off about it? Because I think that it will be, for sure.
Yeah. I think in particular for certain types of players that really care about console exclusive first party games, then absolutely. I don't know if I think I can look at it analytically and say absolutely yes. But when I think about my personal tastes in all the games that I've played this generation, it hasn't been off for me at all because there's been many excellent games. But I guess the question is why? I think that there's many reasons why. One of them is just the reaction to the live service game really blowing up last generation, and like on PS4, games like Fortnite, things like that. And now we're seeing, first party PlayStation wanting a piece of that pie and trying to do it and not doing it very well. And then, of course, on the Xbox side, the whole Game Pass experiment has led to completely blowing up what their formula is, causing a whole new strategy through that. They have this service that they need to feed content to. How do you do that outside of just buying it? Buying individual games is buying not only just entire teams, but entire publishers to feed the beast. And so that has consequences to it as well. So I think that, looking back, it will be particularly looking at first party output and things like that. And also just that we're at the point where games take so long to make because they are so much higher fidelity and the market expects so much more out of them. So in that sense, we're getting less games because, are we really getting less games? We're getting less individual games in series or from established players, or I guess established publishers in some ways. But in other ways, it's like we're getting more games than ever at the same time.
Where are you on this, Chris? Will this be looked at as a lost generation?
Yeah, I think undoubtedly. I think the narrative's kind of already been written in a lot of ways, and I think I don't know if it's necessarily true, but these types of things really only matter as far as like people feel them, like how you feel about a generation or how like the culture feels about a generation is oftentimes how that generation is remembered, regardless of any. We talk about even just the PS1 generation being, not really defined by first party at all, but people remember it that way because you had so many games that were associated so heavily with PlayStation that were so big and were so iconic and important to the industry. Things like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, things like that. And so, I look at this generation as, I guess I guess this is the cost of having multi-generational ecosystems that interact with one another, is that they end up feeling less distinct inherently. Because, Xbox to 360, distinct libraries, 360 to one, like there's some crossover, not really. And so this was the first generation really, like PS4 to PS5, Xbox One to Xbox Series, where like there really wasn't that dividing line. And you could throw a new UI on the PS5 and it's much appreciated. It's more than they did with the Series X, which was kind of a disappointment in my opinion. But ultimately, like, you're kind of still playing the same games, and in some cases with the same people. The biggest games of the last generation are still the biggest games this generation. Things like Fortnite, things like Call of Duty, although that's been true for a while. And so I think this kind of not cross-contamination because that is a negative connotation, but like this this harmony between the previous generation and the current one just gives this console just less of a definitive style. It gives it less of a definitive feel. It feels less like we've had a distinct generation, more like we've just kind of had a more powerful version of the one that came before that interacts in a lot of the same ways. And in some cases has less than we had before. Things like themes go away. And, there's certain bespoke functionality that was cool and interesting at the time that is kind of now not deemed as important enough to carry forward in the tradition. And so, I think, I think this is definitely going to be remembered as kind of like a weird generation with not a lot to show and long dev times. It's going to be defined unquestionably by these layoffs. I think this has been happening for like how long now? It's been crazy. Just the sheer devastation as far as I go, the sheer number. And so, I think the writing's on the wall for this generation, really. Like you can get your intergalactic maybe before this generation wraps up and maybe get something out of it. Obviously, you're still getting great shit like Death Stranding, but I mean, that's technically Death Stranding 2 is started on PS4, so it doesn't feel. I guess like PS1 you had Crash and then it ended, and then like PS2 you had Jack and then it ended, and the PS3 you had Uncharted and then it ended. All right, well it didn't, like it kept going, but this generation, a lot of the cool shit is continuations of things that we've seen before, and that contributes to that feeling as well. So. I don't know. And the next generation is going to be the same in some way because this is just the new way that machines interact. We are going to get PS4 games on PS6. You're going to do it. You're going to see that.
Yeah,
so,
I do believe that there are a few ways that this generation will be remembered in that regard. That's true. Like the tri-generation kind of approach, and it can't be understated. The money will also be remembered. How much it costs to play games this generation and how the cost went up the longer the generation went on. That the cheapest PS5 one can get was in November of 2020. And that's unheard of. And we haven't experienced a really inflationary economic cycle in gaming history before this, because the last time you would see something like this was in the late 70s and into the early 80s, and gaming existed and the game industry existed, but it was largely unaffected by this. And it was also like a toy niche. It wasn't a vertical of entertainment. So this is the first time we ever experienced that. And so that the consoles and the games you're playing are demonstrably more expensive later than they are earlier. And I hope that changes. Technology has been really good about becoming cheaper and more affordable rapidly. And I hope that they can get back to that, because I think people have to understand that the console manufacturers are not charging an arm and a leg for these consoles because they want to. They want to make money on the purchases of software and goods and services and subscriptions. They have to charge this much because it's what's costing them. It's close to what it is costing them to make. And that's a complex problem that needs to be solved, or this generation, I think, will be remembered a great deal for that as well. And that might just be the new normal, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I don't know. I think.
Sorry.
I think what's weird about it is that like the thing that I think defines this generation more, and it's not even. It's weird because it's not even from the console space. It's just like how I've interacted with games and the things that I've observed is like this generation seems to be defined from a gameplay sense or like from a game experience sense, primarily on PC with like all of these like weird kind of smaller proximity, like Lethal Company, Peak, Repo, like these like kind of big smash hit indie darlings kind of exploding. Like I almost think of that as more emblematic of like the period that we're in now, as far as like the positives go, than anything happening in the console space, which seems to be just a lot of big budgets, a lot of long development cycles, tons of job insecurity. It's unfortunate. But I think, I don't know, I feel like the writing's pretty much on the wall personally.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think things are, as has been noted, just rapidly changing. I don't think we're able to adjust quickly enough in the more hardcore space to what is happening, and people's behaviors are rapidly changing too. Did you see that statistic? it was something like kids under 18 in the US have spent 25% less on gaming year over year.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Well, that makes sense. They're competing with phones now.
I know, but that's bad news, in my opinion, for the, in other words, it's going to be like our show is reliant on older and older people. And that's not what you want. It's bad. It's like, that's like a death spiral. You have to, I was watching the show I like, Paolo from Tokyo, the YouTube channel. I'm really into him. And he does like the day in the life of like different people working at these different shops in Japan. And he went to like a fish cake factory. And one of the things they were talking about is how like young people don't give a shit about fish cakes. And that like to sell them, they've kind of started leaning into the fact that they're really healthy sources of protein for like bodybuilders and shit like that. In other words, you have to constantly evolve or you die.
Yeah.
All right. Matt728 wrote in and said, hey, all questions for Colin. When you were in games journalism, specifically IGN, was it commonly discussed among your peers that most were using journalism as a path to marketing or development jobs? I'm in my mid-30s and I've been following games for 20 plus years. Nearly every voice I used to read or listen to is now part of the machine. I'm just curious if that is what most people plan when they get into the gaming journalism, or if so many eventually fall into these roles as they look for better paying opportunities. I do think it's both. It's so different now than it used to be, but when I became a freelancer 23 years ago, I would have done anything. And I think a lot of people are the same. It's like whatever you like, that were passionate enough and wanted to be part of it. It's like whatever you want. And I think if they found their way into fucking marketing, they would have done that. And if they found their way into PR, they would have done that. And if they found their way into game dev, they would have done that, or writing. And a lot of us found their way into games journalism, in quotes, because that was what was most available to us in that early internet period, that web 1.0 period that like was formative for all of us. I do feel like I am unique in that, or at least one of the unique people in that I really have never had any desire to go work at a game studio, and I've had my opportunities. And as I discussed previously, the one I remember just one of the examples I remember is like really being interested in an associate producer role at Giant Sparrow. And the reality is like when I sat and thought about it, and I never pursued it or anything, but when I sat and thought about it, and I was like, I don't really want to do this. Like, I don't really want to make games. And then when I found that I did want to make games, I found that I wanted to make like very specific, very niche games. People often ask me like, what would, in like our Q&As every month on Patreon, get questions like, what would you do with like $100 million budget and stuff? And I'm like, I don't want to make a game like that. Like, I have no interest in making games like that. I really don't. I guess it's akin to a film critic not wanting to make films or something, but I want to make smaller, more true NES style games, as everyone knows, but I really don't have that in me. So that was not a jump that even when those opportunities presented themselves, either literally or tacitly, I never really pursued them. But I knew a lot of people that were eager and did jump in. And I know people that jumped back and forth between jobs too. Like they would jump to a developer, then back, then jump to a developer again or whatever. I don't think there's anything untoward about it. I really just think the games industry, like many enthusiast industries, draws excited people that are just willing to do whatever to stay. And that's what happens. And by the way, there's no room in games media anymore. Who's getting into games media? So now the funny part is that the easiest way to get into games was through the door was often as a freelancer or something on one of these sites. And now, honestly, the easiest way to get into games development is at a studio, which is a total inversion of the reality. Like, you're way more likely to get hired at a fucking game developer than you are at IGN. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I don't know that it was part of the plan. It was probably part of the plan for some people. But as I said, if something else fell into my lap when IGN fell into my lap, I would have been excited about that. No doubt. Whatever it was. So, Matt, thank you for writing in. Finally, Eric Smith, the bartender, wrote in and said, hello, boys. I was wondering if you could share your thoughts on the Stop Killing Games initiative that has gained a lot of traction over the last few weeks. Colin, when discussing things such as piracy, you've mentioned how we shouldn't expect games to exist in perpetuity, and that just because a game exists, it doesn't mean that everyone should have access to it. With this said, Do you believe that developers should have an end-of-life plan when developing a game? Do you believe that storefronts should change the wording on a game's page to something along the lines of rent instead of buy now, to illustrate to consumers that these games could go away or offline at any time? I'll hang up now and listen. So I've only heard of this tacitly, and so I read more about the Stop Killing Games. Have you guys heard about this? I sent you links, but it's a petition, I think, being circulated in Europe primarily, or for European players. But it says, quote, "Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. An increasing number of video games are sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support from the publisher ends. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, but makes preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. Over the past year, we have successfully escalated complaints on this problem to consumer agencies in France, Germany, and Australia, and have brought forth petitions for new law on this problem to various countries. A list of the actions taken to date can be viewed here. Blah, blah, blah. As of 2025, most consumer action on this matter has concluded, and we are awaiting decisions on it from several governments. However, there are a few remaining avenues left where people can participate if they're eligible. And one of the major things here is that there's an EU petition available to sign. It has 1.4 million signatures as of now. And it says European Citizens Initiative, quote, "This is the most powerful option at our disposal, but it requires a massive number of signatures from citizens of EU countries in order to pass. If we can pass the signature threshold, there is a very strong chance that the European Commission will pass new law that will both protect consumer rights to retain video games that customers have purchased and advance preservation efforts massively." There's also a petition going for the UK and so on and so forth. So you can go to stopkillinggames.com to see all this stuff. But Dustin, let me go over to you. Have you heard about this? So you have heard about this. What do you think about it? And what are your thoughts on this runaway petition, the popularity of it?
Yeah, I've been hearing about this, and it's very deeply tied to a YouTube creator. I don't know if you know him, Colin. I'm sure Chris does. Pirate Software, who has been vocally against this. And I think that that's kind of what made this such a big story. So yeah, it's interesting that this is coming up, especially now, because they just announced while we were recording that Anthem servers are going offline in the future. And so you will no longer be able to play Anthem soon. So
damn.
Yeah, unfortunate. So I think I agree overall. I was looking through and reading some of their FAQ about this, and I think I agree overall with the idea that Anthem has a single player campaign. You will no longer be able to play that, even if you bought it. I think that something like this makes sense for that, where games that have online servers but single player elements that go away. I like this idea of like, hey, you bought the game, even if the servers aren't live, you should be able to play those single player portions of the game. They make some cases about, because my thought was like, okay, you can't expect every single game to have like particularly like games that are intrinsically built to be online to have a single player thing. I feel like that's just kind of the deal when you buy a game like that that's so deeply connected online. And maybe there is a need for better communication about what you actually are purchasing. But in parts of this FAQ, they're talking about like, what about large scale MMORPGs? Isn't it impossible for customers to run those when the servers are shut down? And they're talking about how there's like server emulators that people run and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've never been interested in doing something like that because I don't want to connect to some random dude's homegrown World of Warcraft server or something like that. So I'm not necessarily in support that every game developer should be forced to have some kind of offline component to their game that if you buy it, you can still expect to play that. But in many situations where these games that just have online server connection for very little reason, and then when that goes, you can't play anymore, then yeah, I think that there should be protections that people should be able to play those offline in the future.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think I'm in agreement with this thing generally. Like, I think there's a lot of games that kind of they're tied to servers for no real like I think about I'm not even really sure how Destiny 1 works necessarily. I don't know if a lot of that is server side or if a lot of the server handles like just like player interactions or whatever. But like it is weird to me that there's a potential reality where Destiny 1 just goes away to the point where like, okay, you can't even load into an empty map and run around. Like that's bizarre to me. It sucks. I think it's weird that these things can just be revoked, especially because they clearly function in some way. And to be clear, because I've seen some confusion about this too, it's like the initiative isn't necessarily pulling for like, okay, retroactively now, every online video game needs to abide by this or else, you know, they'll be sued into oblivion. It's really more about like creating an ecosystem where this is something that developers should think about going forward as they're building games in the future, where like, okay, well, this game really, really requires, and the sole part of it is being online, and there is a single player component here. How can we build this game in such a way that when our contracts with third-party software that we need to use in this game ends, or any other number of things that lead to the end of the life cycle, how can we more efficiently build our development pipeline to allow for an easy way to sever those connections at the end of life so that people can still interact with the software that they've rightfully purchased without necessarily just having a glorified launcher screen, a press start button, and then a cannot connect to server screen. You know, I think that's ultimately the core of this. And I think I agree with it for the overwhelming majority of cases. I think obviously games that are only online, where like the only, like if it's like a PvP, like Marvel Rivals, for example, like I don't know what the benefit necessarily would be of playing Marvel Rivals single player. You know what I mean? Like that seems kind of, I don't know. That seems completely purposeless. But a game like Anthem, a game like Destiny, which has a ton of single player oriented content, I think it makes sense that if you buy that, you should have an expectation that you would have access to at least certain portions of that experience in perpetuity, even if the core functionality of a lot of broad strokes functionality of that game does not is no longer supported or no longer works. I think about even just games from a long ass time ago, where like I think about Halo 2, where like the Halo 2 servers shut down. I think April of 2010 or 2011. I can't remember which year, and you couldn't play Halo 2 online anymore. And that wasn't really a big deal because there was still a single player campaign there. But even to the extent that you had access to the multiplayer, you could still either set up a server online, or you could still interact with the multiplayer space in a split screen capacity, or even just by yourself to run around the map and fuck around. And, you know, if you wanted to make a video about it, you could capture that footage. Like, I mean, there's endless utility from like game preservation spaces, from game preservation perspectives, to just having a reasonable expectation that the thing that you bought for will remain in some way, shape, or form interactable, even after the broad strokes of the flashier elements of certain aspects of the design fade away. And I think I largely agree with that. I think there should be a place, or there should be a system in place to account for that, because I mean, preservation is important. It sucks that games go away. Not to expect that they are supported forever, but Jesus Christ, at least let me run around the Destiny 1 Cosmodrome with nobody else. You know, I don't think that's too much to ask for really going forward. I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I just think it's substantially more complicated than it's ever been, and that going back, yeah, obviously it's not retroactive, but it also doesn't really need to be very retroactive, because most games are physical in history and will be available on those various platforms unplugged from the internet if you just do the math. You know, isn't really a problem even until the PS4 generation, and though the PS3 generation will become a problem if and when they take the PSN store offline, which, remember, they tried to do a couple of years ago, and they didn't, and everyone got mad, and they just haven't even tried again. I thought they would have done it again. Yeah, I just think that he says in here, like the idea of renting games instead of buying, you're not renting them, you're licensing them. And I wonder if there is the solution to this is just to communicate the license better.
Sure.
And even if it says like buy license, and then you can read the license thing, and it's probably going to say something in legalese, but something like, this will literally exist on this server probably forever unless PlayStation goes away or whatever. And at which point we can't guarantee the access to your game. And that's the thing that I think I have the biggest problem with, is that with digital games that require a third party, basically, I mean, it's first parties, but it's a third party. Sony, you have to download the game from the PSN, then store it on your console. I just think there are too many moving parts to say like we need a universal guarantee of game availability moving forward. I really think the easier solution is to just make it so that you're not buying the game, that you're indefinitely licensing it, and that it probably won't really matter. Because that's the thing that I think, we were talking about how 14 or 13% of people that played Death Stranding Director's Cut beat it. Now imagine how many people are going back to games that are 5 or 10 years old. Almost no one. I think that this is a problem that is real, because as I understand that the Stop Killing Games movement began specifically around the game The Crew, the Ubisoft game, and about a lawsuit filed, which we covered on the show, about them taking that game offline. And everyone's like, why are you taking it offline? Doesn't really make any sense. But from Ubisoft's perspective, I think they're legally okay, because they did communicate somehow that it's an indefinite game. But also it's like, we sell you an online game and then we have to keep it up forever.
Well, I think the issue with The Crew is that like there was a single player component to the game that is no longer interactable now.
Right. So that would, and I agree, I think that would be a different story. But you're dealing with a lot of granularity. I really think the easiest catch-all solution is to just, as you said, rename the button when you buy it, to just say buy license. And will that turn people off? Maybe, but who doesn't know that in some deep way about the digital product that they're buying?
Well, I would argue the overwhelming majority of people do not know about that.
Well, but I guess I'm not saying, I guess I understand what you're saying, Chris, but to me, you just think you're going to have access to a PlayStation 5 download forever. It doesn't really square to me. It's just strange that.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be ideal and nice. And I again, as we've spoken about ad nauseum, I think from PS4 onward, that stuff will be available in perpetuity, even if it's available as a mirror on PC one day or something. I think that's because I think that's ultimately the way Xbox is moving too. And I discussed that in my conversation with Reese Elliott, where I think they're ultimately going to have a really robust, very pro-consumer emulation solution for all Xbox games to play on PC. And then that's how you're going to be able to let go of the platform in the future. But I don't know. I think it's a great idea. Pro-consumer is good. I just think it's way more complicated than that. But I think we all agree, single player games, as long as networks are still up and available, I have no problem with that. And this is why I understand people like digital games, although as we've covered also ad nauseum on the show, a lot of these games are like, it was a big deal with Death Stranding 2, which is actually on the disc, I saw reported, as opposed to a lot of these games that are coming out that are basically just prodding for download files. So they're not really on the disc and you don't really own them even when you own them physically. It's a very complex thing that's going to come to a head at some point, but I don't know when. In the meantime, go to stopkillinggames.com if you want to check out what they're doing specifically in Europe and Australia. And on that note, we wrap this episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. It was a great episode. Thank you guys for being here. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone. Chris, goodbye to you. Be well.
Yeah, goodbye to you, man. I'm gonna, you know what I'm having a craving. I want Texas toast real bad right now.
Oh yeah, I love Texas toast.
I'm having a hankering, so I might see if that's possible.
They sell it like you could just, we buy the, like when we make pasta, we often just buy the frozen Texas toast and then
they're not bad at all.
Not at all.
Like they're quite good.
I like making homemade garlic bread, but it's like, why bother? Just
it's a lot.
This is good. This is good.
Yeah,
go get it. You know what's really nice is like a hero or a sandwich on Texas toast, like a turkey sandwich. That. Oh my god, dude,
that sounds crazy though.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy. Good luck. Dustin, be well. Goodbye to you. You gonna go throw around the pigskin with Dad?
Yeah, hold on. I'll do one of these. But yeah, thanks for having me as always on this show. Thanks everybody for coming out to Too Many Games.
Yeah, you had a good
time hanging out. with everybody, which was cool. Dude, the Fun Dungeon, shout out. That place rules. So if you're in the Philly, Phoenixville area, go check out Fun Dungeon. We had a great time hanging out there. And yeah, appreciate everybody for that. And as far as for me and the rest of my night, it's not interesting. I'm going to eat dinner. I'm going to play Death Stranding 2. I'm going to edit this show. I'll go to bed around 1:30, 2 a.m. And that's about it. But that's the way I like it. It sounds like a fantastic evening.
The when you swapped the hat to the backwards hat, did you feel as I do, where like you're astounded that anybody ever wore their hat like this in the first place?
Backwards?
Yeah.
I like wearing a backwards hat. What do you mean?
I can't, like, I wore a backwards hat. I wore my hat and I was like, you know what? Let me turn it backwards. And I immediately felt like I should be killed.
Oh,
like I immediately felt like there was something, like even just like sitting down to like watch TV, I was like hitting the couch and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that can be annoying.
Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And how did so many people do it for so long?
I haven't done it since I was
dumb
a kid.
looking.
You look dumb. Is what you just said.
No,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, I felt like I looked dumb wearing it. It could just be me. I don't pull off that shit. But I also don't pull off hats very well. That's why I wear patrol caps primarily.
Yeah.
Because they have like a flat kind of, like, I like that look. But
yeah,
oh, well.
I feel like I overall don't look that great in hats, but sometimes I see a hat that I like so much, like this.
The Jaguar hat's pretty dope, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool.
Jaguar hat. It says limited on the side.
Ooh.
And it's got a nice Atari logo on the back.
Yeah, I noticed
too,
that. That's nice.
So I'm going for it. And I'm wearing it back. You know what? I'm wearing it backwards on next week's show just for you, Chris.
Own it.
Since you said I look like a fucking retard with it on.
Jeez Louise.
You could be a trendsetter. You could usher in, everybody's going to start wearing backwards hats now because of Dustin.
All right, guys, good to be here with you. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. I'm going to go in the pool, have a beer, smoke a joint. And then, yeah, play Death Stranding tonight. Just relax on this Thursday Eve. Happy 4th of July to everyone. This will go live on 4th of July. Enjoy yourself. Be safe. Stay away from the fireworks. Stay away from the parades. Just have yourself a good time. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your time off. And we'll see you next week for more. And remember, of course, not only actually, just to tease it real quick, 2 episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus this weekend. Please look forward to them. We'll talk to you soon. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.